Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 176 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield.
I'm Matt Kyle.
And we are here to bring you the biggest and the best in video games for the week. Not a great week for video games.
No, I mean, it's August. What do you want?
Yeah.
But Fire Emblem's still going, so.
And going.
Going.
Fire
Emblem will take care of you till, frankly, till Astral Chain comes out. I mean, there's not really a whole lot happening right now.
Yeah, it's pretty dead right now. But I think we do have a really good show for you guys somehow. We've eked out enough
I think that's the first time
topics.
I've ever remembered that game's name.
What, Astral
Astral Chain?
You finally got it after all this time.
Is it? It's Astral Chain,
Yeah,
right?
That's it.
I always want to call it Abyssal Chain.
Just remember that the primary weapon in the game is that sword that will turn into a chain, and then you can use it to lasso enemies and
Yeah, well, I know the chain. It's the A word.
the astral part. Anyway, here we are on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be our permanent time going forward. I think this is 3 weeks in a row. Finally, we've got it going at the same day and time.
No, just 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Because the first time was Thursday.
Oh, right.
And then we did Tuesday.
And then we did a show 4
and then
days
now we're doing
later.
Tuesday.
Yeah, this is the first show we've had a whole week to prepare for.
Yeah.
And we still
Not
had
that it mattered.
And we still had to redo the open again. Yeah, for those of you who are watching the archive, we actually started this show once. We had mic problems, and then we had to start it all over again. So this is the second go-around. We do have a great show for you guys today. Thank you guys for all your great questions for Pactor Factor. I think this round was some of the best questions that we've had in a really long time. I talked on our show this past weekend, Today's High Score, which is our call-in show, which went great, by the way. All of you guys should become a part of that show. It's every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific. I was really impressed with how many calls we got in the first week. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. But anyway, it's tough getting shows together during these time periods. Mm-hmm. you gotta work for it. But luckily, some things happen. We're going to talk about Evo today. We're going to talk about some things that have been happening culturally around games that we're not all that excited to talk about, but I feel like we need to. We got some good stuff. But before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsor. Feeling the urge to get away from it all? Permanently or for months at a time? Immerse yourself in the best Montana has to offer on 320 acres of remote, heavily forested property. Gaze at your own private lake from the deck of the log cabin. Truly off the grid, soak in a custom wood fire-heated hot tub surrounded by wilderness and wildlife. Visit www.lostlakemontana.com for more detailed information and images. You can also contact Doug DeShazer today at deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643. That's deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643. Big thanks to DeShazer Ryan Realty for sponsoring the show. It was a huge help in us getting the studio set up and everything. They were also very patient waiting for us to get the studio all set up so that we could start running their promotions in the show. So I just want to thank them really a lot. You guys, if you're looking for property, hit them up. They also sell property all over the U.S. It's not just in Montana, so check them out. And with that, it's time to kick off the show proper. We're going to start things with probably the biggest story or the biggest reveal of the week, and that is Call of Duty Modern Warfare Multiplayer. They had an event here on August 1st in L.A. I was invited to the event. Unfortunately, I could not attend because I had a bunch of other stuff I had to do for the site. But the reports and the live stream that they shared pretty much gave up the ghost in so many different ways. So we have a ton of information to get through. Did you check out all that stuff, Matt?
No, I didn't even know that happened.
Really? You must have been all sifted for a couple days.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in the second half of the week.
Yeah, well, they did a huge blowout here in LA, and they did a live stream that ended up lasting 4 hours to blow the game out. And subsequently, tons and tons of coverage came out afterwards. As you all know,
the only thing I saw was that kill streaks are coming back.
Yes, kill streaks are replacing score streaks. So I'm not a fan of this change, by the way. Mm-hmm. Do you remember why score streaks replaced kill streaks?
If I remember right, the idea was that it only rewarded one kind of play, basically. If you were, all it rewarded was killing over, in repetition, and it discouraged the idea of playing as a support role or doing other things, or basically there was only one way to succeed.
Yep, that's accurate, and that is why. So when they started using score streaks, basically how it works, kill streaks where you get 5 kills, you get this crazy awesome thing that you can use. Score streaks basically just took the score that you earned and set certain limits that you needed to hit to get those same awesome attacks or whatever. And that allowed people who did things like support operatives and things like that to actually get points. For instance, like you would get points just for taking out score streaks. So if I have a rocket launcher and I shoot down a drone, I would get points for that would build into my score streak and allow me to get score streaks. Now, kills only. So you wonder the people who, in all honesty, over the last 8 years, have learned that they're rewarded for doing things more than just killing, how they're going to react to this. Because there's a whole lot of people out there who play Call of Duty who are never going to get a kill streak. I know personally, I get way more score streaks than I ever got kill streaks. I remember back when I was at GT, I never had a 15 kill streak where I could use the best kill streaks.
I think the only time I ever got any 15 kill streaks was in the review events.
Oh, really? When you were playing against journalists, you weren't very good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is handy because you needed that footage to run for.
Oh, yeah. I got tons of good footage doing that. I mean, if you want to feel good about yourself, play at a review event.
Yeah. That's true. And then you go out into the wild and you play against the 5-year-olds.
Yeah, even the day before the game comes, I'm like, how are you this good? You've never played this before. I've been playing for 3 weeks.
Yeah. And so I'm not a fan of this change because it's going to change the game for me. It's going to take probably the most exciting part of Call of Duty out of the game for a lot of players. I mean, there's a reason they changed to this and kept it that way for a long time. It's because it's a better system. It was an evolution of the kill streak. And now we're going back to, I hate to use this phrase, but ground zero. And we're going back to the way it was when everything first started. So I'm not a huge fan of that change at all, in all honesty. And I think once people get their hands on the game, the vast majority of people aren't going to be fans of it either because we're not all quick-scoping sniper murderers. I don't know. It seemed to me that it made the game more interesting and fun to a wider group of people, score streaks. So we're going back to the old way where a select few of elite players actually get to use the streaks. Not a fan.
Well, it seems like it is kind of going back to basics a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean...
They're taking the number out of the title and everything.
The traversal stuff is the same as it's been for the last couple entries. It's boots on the ground. You still have a slide, but...
There wasn't a lot of wall running in the European front.
Nope, definitely not. So and I'm okay with that. I liked the traversal stuff in Infinite Warfare. It was probably my favorite Call of Duty multiplayer to play because you had jetpacks and you could actually go vertical. They haven't done that for a while now. I've kind of gotten used to it at this point, so that's not a big deal. But one thing I do like about what they're changing for Modern Warfare is they're making the maps far more interactive. So maps right now are pretty much just, we built this, you can't really interact with it in any way. Your best case scenario is there are places in the maps where you can hit a switch and it will open and close like a sliding door or something. That's pretty much as far as it goes. The new game is, first of all, it has tons of doors, which changes everything. Most of the doorways in recent Call of Duties are just open doorways. If there's a door on the hinge, it's open permanently. Well, there are doors that you open and shut in this game, which changes everything as far as strategy is concerned. It keeps people from being able to see in. It keeps you from being able to see out as well, but you can also create ambushes inside buildings. Everyone can open the door and come running out. It really changes a lot. And then they've instituted another new feature where you can basically lock your gun onto objects and use it as like a tripod. So you can lock your gun onto a door jamb, onto a wall, and you have a lot less recoil when you fire the gun. You can also use that as kind of a peek around option when you're playing multiplayer, so you don't have to risk yourself, because currently there's nothing like that in Call of Duty. So if you want to look, you got to go out there. Your whole body has to go out and you get killed. So I think that's a great change. They said that there's going to be a bunch of hidden areas on the maps that will take people a while to figure out how to get into them. You'll have to climb up ladders and the side of buildings to get to some areas. So they said they want the maps to be something that people explore and try to find new stuff. And I think that's a great idea. The maps have felt pretty much dead in Call of Duty for a really long time. So I'm behind that change. I think that's a great idea. There's going to be another Battle Royale mode. They didn't talk much about that, though, at the multiplayer event. They just kind of mentioned it offhand, but there is one coming.
There were rumors that was going to be 200 people.
Well, you segue nicely into what I was going to say next, which is that the whole theme kind of is more people. They showed 32 on 32 matches at the event. They played 10 on 10 team deathmatch. Usually it's 6 on 6 in Call of Duty. They said that, like, they didn't give any hard numbers, but they said basically the sky is the limit with player counts. But they also went backwards a little bit too. So one of the modes that they showed and kind of featured at the event was 2-on-2 gunfight. And gunfight is nothing new. It's a mode that's been in Call of Duty. It's also a mode that's been in a lot of other games. Basically, it's a mode where they tell you what guns you get, and it's randomized. But everyone starts with the same. So everyone starts with like a pistol or whatever. And then if you get a kill with that pistol or you die, then next time you get like an SMG. And then it keeps graduating up until you have more and more weapons. But when it's just 2-on-2, you probably don't need much more than a pistol anyway. But it does randomize the weapons, and that seemed to be the mode coming out of that event that the journalists were most excited about. I didn't get to play it.
Is that the mode that Gears 5 stole?
Yeah. I mean, every game's pretty much stolen it at this point, where it's just like, you don't know what gun you're getting. Oh, I got a shotgun. Now I need to go up close and kill people. It's a cool idea. It's never really stuck with me over the long term because I felt like just sometimes you just got screwed. And also, if you fall behind, in the way some of those modes are done, if you fall behind the other players, it's a self-defeating cycle because you're already behind and the other guys who are ahead of you have better weapons. So you have like no chance of like bringing yourself up, picking yourself up by your bootstraps and doing better as it goes. So there's pros and cons, I guess, to that type of game design for shooters. The other big thing, cross-play across everything. Xbox, PS4, PC. Infinity Ward said that they did some testing and that they found that the controller players were beating the PC players. Do you believe that?
I mean, I don't know why they'd lie about it.
Yeah, I mean, they said they brought in pros, a pro that plays on PC, a pro that plays on a console controller, and the pro on the controller was winning every round. So anecdotally, they seem to think that it's going to be balanced. They said it's a big priority for them that they get it balanced. Hey, Andres, you can run B-roll anytime, bro.
Well, I didn't know if you had B-roll.
No, yeah, there's tons of B-roll in there. But there you go. So there's pros and cons to those types of modes, basically, is what I'm saying. But they've never really stuck with me over the long haul. There's no season pass. I think we talked about that already when we talked about the game for the first time. Which is a big deal, but there is kind of a Sony exclusivity thing going on. Like, there's an open beta coming in October for everybody, but it starts on, like, September 22nd or something for PS4. So there's still some kind of marketing deal going on there. But no season pass is good. No one's going to complain. Who cares who gets the beta early, as long as you don't have to pay for content going forward. Loadouts are, like, predetermined, so there's no pick 10 system. Again, one of those things where they're going backwards instead of going forwards. That was kind of the way the old Call of Duty games were. The Pick 10, again, was this system that was evolved over years and years. So I don't understand. I mean, I get this, like this whole retro, everything old is new again thing going on right now with all these remasters and reworks and things like that. But that's not what I wanted from this. Like, they already remade Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. We have that already. I wanted a new Call of Duty, and it just seems weird to take something that took a lot of work and evolution to get to and just replace it with something that people had overwhelmingly decided was inferior. I don't get it. I like the Pick 10 system. I like being able to choose exactly how I want to spend my points. Maybe I don't want 6 attachments on my gun. Maybe I want a third weapon. Maybe I want to have 3 or 4 perks instead of having the silencer on the end of my rifle. Like, it just takes away the flexibility from the game. I have no idea why they're doing this stuff.
I think they're doing it to streamline it under the idea that you're lowering the barrier of entry if you make it simpler.
Do they need to lower the barrier of entry to Call of Duty?
They seem to think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what metrics they're looking at, but there certainly seems to be a push to, bring it back to more of like what it was when it really blew up the first time. And, in the wake of things like Ghosts and Infinite Warfare, I can also see how Infinity, because those are Infinity Ward, and I can see how Infinity Ward might be like, all right, why don't we just go back to the stuff we know works.
That's what I was going to say, is maybe the problem is Infinity Ward is looking at its data instead of the data for the franchise as a whole, because Infinity Ward's last few games have arguably been kind of the worst Call of Duty releases. Like, I liked the campaign and Infinite Warfare and the multiplayer, but most people didn't. And they haven't sold as well. Ghost, for most people, is one of the worst Call of Duties ever. And so I hope that Infinity Ward isn't looking at the data for its games and saying, hey, people stopped playing this because of... No, they played it because they didn't think your game was as good as Treyarch's or Sledgehammer's. I wouldn't think that they would be that silly to do something like that, but who knows?
I don't know. I mean, Infinity Ward is obviously not the same company that made Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2. They're, you know, the people who made those games went and formed Respawn. So I don't really know who's over there anymore. But I have not...
Well, they just brought back a guy to work on this that worked on the original. He was gone for like 9 years or something like that, and they just brought him back in from... He had been working at some other studio or something for the last almost decade. And I guess if your goal is to go back, maybe it's good to bring the guy back that was working on those old games. Maybe. I just don't understand it. There was another mode that had revives. Something that's just not in Call of Duty. You don't revive your teammates in Call of Duty. It's just not how it works. There's one mode so far that has it. They haven't said if other modes are going to have it, but they showed one that did have it. Now, that's not the case in the traditional modes like Capture the Flag and Domination and Team Deathmatch. That's just for this special mode, so you're not reviving people when you're going to play your old standby in this game. But having revives at all in Call of Duty is a big deal. Most of the reports from the event said that the revives take too long and therefore were pretty useless, because otherwise it's still a Call of Duty.
Yeah, it seems like one of the reasons there's no revives in the game, I would think, is because Call of Duty moves so fast.
Oh, it's like lightning fast.
So, like, if you're... Like, in the time it takes you to kind of stand in one place, and, I mean, Battlefield has that problem a little bit, too, but Battlefield's so large in scope that you don't really notice... Like, you can't notice every single person who's trying to revive a teammate. So, you have the time to kind of bring someone back as a medic, whereas in Call of Duty, the maps are so small and so constant, and, like, the circulation of opponents is so constant that, like... I wouldn't want to stop and try to help somebody, frankly.
That's what they were saying. They're like, it's just constant barrage of bullets, like trying to revive someone in the game, because, again, the maps are smaller to encourage confrontation.
Although if they're going for, like, size and player count this time, maybe that's kind of part of the shift. Because the player counts sound Battlefield size at this point. So presumably the maps are bigger too. I don't know. Like, you know,
it didn't sound like it. It
doesn't look like it in this footage.
No, and they said, and most of the reports from the event said that the maps were scaled based upon the mode. Like the 2-on-2 gunfight mode, they said the maps were really small. And I'm guessing if they do get to a point where there's 100 players in each match, there's no way you can do that on a traditional Call of Duty map. They're going to have to build bigger ones. But if they're building a Battle Royale mode, they're going to have that tech anyway. So you figure if you can do a Battle Royale mode where you have 100-plus players on one gigantic map, you can absolutely do Team Deathmatch with 64 players on a pretty big map. At least you'd think, anyway. What else? Gunsmith has kind of replaced loadouts. It was kind of stolen from Rainbow Six. Actually, all Ubisoft shooters pretty much have Gunsmith at this point. I think Breakout also has Gunsmith.
Yeah, I mean, so did Wildlands.
Right.
Wildlands was just like...
It was insane.
You could customize anything on the guns in that.
Yeah. And so that's coming to Call of Duty. And again, that's kind of a replacement or a supplement to the lack of a Pick 10 system. They said you could have up to 5 or 6 attachments on each gun, but each gun actually has like 50 or 60 attachments possible, which is crazy. I'm guessing they're going to give you better versions of the same, like 5 or 6 things we've been getting all this time.
Yeah, I would guess there'd be several ranks of the same type of add-ons.
Yeah. And honestly, one of the biggest changes that I heard about from this event is there's no radar. Radar is a streak now. So you can only see radar when someone has the radar streak.
I like that.
Do you like that?
Yeah, I've always kind of been annoyed by radar. We used to when I was back when multiplayer was like server driven, like with things like we would always play with radar off, just because it's like why what does that represent? You know, in a scenario of a gunfight, like no one has that. You know, the radar is more like something you should use in like Metal Gear Solid to like. When it was all top down and there was no other way to tell which direction somebody was facing, like from off screen. But like in a game like this, like radar makes it so you're just looking at dots.
No, you're right. But that's what I was going to say is that people who are really good at this game are going to hate it. Because people who are really good, and even when I play Call of Duty, I'm always looking at the radar. Mm-hmm. Always. My eyes are darting from the radar to the screen, just constantly.
Oh, same. But after a while, I start to, like, kind of like, tends to be one of the things that stops me from playing. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I just, like, playing radar the game at this point?
Yeah, it's so important, though, knowing where enemies are. In fact, in Black Ops 4, one of the abilities that I use is the ability to see my teammates through walls. Mm-hmm. And I've never turned it off once I turned it on because it tips you off to everything that's happening. If two guys are caught in a gunfight over on the right side of the map, you see it. If one guy's basically dueling somebody else on the left side of the map, you see it. And so it's very easy to react to the overall play that's happening on the map. So it's going to be a big change for me, and I'm not like pro quality Call of Duty player. These people that are really good, they're going to have to completely adjust how they play the game, and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, I'm honestly undecided on that feature change yet as to whether I'm going to like it or not. It's hard. I think it's hard to know until it's put into practice. I know one thing. If you don't have a radar, there's going to be a lot more surprise moments where you come around a corner and you're like, oh my God, there's 5 dudes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that works even. I mean, I see radar there. That must be the kill streak up.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense also in conjunction with like having the closed door aspect.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess you're trying to essentially augment that other change to make it easier to kind of go down. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this multiplayer. I mean, 2 huge components of this, again, that evolved over years and years of iteration to a point where I think most people thought they were perfect, have rolled back the clock by about a decade to go back to the way it was. Does it have any effect on you as someone who doesn't really play Call of Duty?
No.
Does it make you more apt to play it? Or no?
Like, this is, I mean, Call of Duty multiplayer is just like, do I want to, like, get killed repeatedly for as long as I can stand it? That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Like, I have been out of the loop for a decade, and, I don't care about like being competitive in these games, and it's just everybody is just way better than I am, and I'm just not. At most it's just like to sort of look and see what it is.
This might be a leveling of the playing field, though.
Sort of.
Maybe that is the idea. Maybe
I think that's what they're after, but like I don't know if it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Like
because you have to get people to try it first, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's what the beta's for, but
I don't know. I just feel like I've done it.
Yeah.
Like no matter what you change, I feel like I've done it.
Well, this is like Madden, and we're going to talk again about Madden here in a little bit, but it's kind of like Madden where it's got to the point where it's added so much stuff that it just recycles stuff now and calls it new features.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you're a fan, you're kind of like stuck in this position where you're like waiting for news on this year's version, kind of going like, well, I hope it has the things I like, and not the things I don't like.
Right.
So, and you're never going to please everybody. Especially because you got 3 different teams that probably all have different ideas about what the game should be.
Yeah.
And I would say, Treyarch's vision of this series is probably the dominant one, but clearly there's some wiggle room here and there.
Music coming.
Do you hear music?
Yeah, I hear music too. I don't know where it's coming from. It's weird.
Huh.
But anyway, as a big Call of Duty player, I am not particularly excited for this game. I will try the beta, obviously, and give it a go. And I have an open mind. I'm willing to give it a chance. It could be better. Who knows?
I mean, I might play the single player, depending on what people say. It's just Call of Duty's not been a priority for me since Infinity Ward became Respawn.
Yeah.
After which point, Respawn became the priority.
Yeah, that's true.
And
they're definitely making better shooters.
Yeah. And I'm hoping they're going to make a better Star Wars game soon.
Oh, yeah. Good point. We haven't seen anything from that since, for a while now.
I think you'll see some stuff soon at D23.
We kind of need to. I mean...
I mean, that's
not too far away now.
No, that's their next stop. I mean, look, I already bought it, so doesn't matter. That's the only thing I pre-ordered for the fall.
Is that
already.
true?
The
only thing. You
already...
didn't pre-order Pokemon.
Not yet.
Surprised.
One of the reasons I pre-ordered Fallen Jedi was because there was like a 10% off deal for if you had Battlefront 2, and you click through on Battlefront 2 to the store, and you got like 10% off the pre-order. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. Sure.
Yeah.
Like that's a good consolation prize for having bought Battlefront 2.
A weird one, but
yeah, that was fine. But yeah, everything else, like, I mean, if you give me 10% off Pokemon, I'll buy that too.
Yeah.
But Pokemon, I will probably have to put. I know, you know what? I did pre-order Pokemon. You're right. I put in a pre-order for that the Amazon 2-pack thing.
If somebody asked me
when
what's
they put it
the
up
one
at
game
E3.
Matt pre-order for the fall, well, no, I would have said Star Wars first still. But
Right.
then I would have said Pokemon.
But Pokemon, I put up because I like to get Amazon for the last few games has done like a 2-pack thing, either in like Steelbook or like whatever, and they sell out because they're Nintendo things. So
yeah.
I get those early. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But I remember Fallen Jedi because it's in my install list on my Xbox when I scroll through it. It's like just sitting there. It's like pre-order. Also, the Outer Wilds still says pre-order, even though it came out like in June.
That's weird.
It still says pre-order. I played it. I've been through it, but it's still the icon on my install list still says pre-order.
Interesting. Huh.
Maybe because it's early access. I don't know.
Could be. All right. So anyway, there you go. That's Call of Duty.
That's your one Activision game for the year.
It is their only game this year. Yeah. But anyway, that's our preview of Call of Duty Modern Warfare multiplayer. Again, an open beta is coming the end of September for PS4, and then it goes to the other platforms after that. Because there are so many changes, I highly suggest people give the beta a go, because I don't think you're going to know whether you're going to like this stuff until you actually try it.
Yeah.
So the good news is you're going to have plenty of opportunity to do it before you have to plunk down your cash. All right. Let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about EVO 2019. Just went down this weekend in Las Vegas. I have to admit right out of the gate that this is the first EVO in probably 8 or 9 years where I did not watch a single second of it live.
I missed Saturday because I was at Disneyland. Which is a decent trade-off,
yeah,
but like
totally legit excuse.
But all the interesting finals were on Saturday. Sunday was a little bit of a bust. Like I've invited people over pretty often for the Sunday Grand Finals, and this year only one person came.
Oh, really?
And he left after Street Fighter because
that's all he cared.
He's like, I'm getting tired and a little sleepy, and I don't think Tekken's gonna wake me up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the order was a little anticlimactic for me on Sunday because I'm more interested in 2D fighting games. So you had Blaze Blue, which is fun to watch. I don't know a whole lot about Blaze Blue beyond very casual play, but like I always think those anime fighters are weird. I watched it on Friday. I watched a lot of pools. I watched a fair amount of Under Night. Fate, Stay, Rebirth, whatever the hell that thing is. Yeah, I thought that was that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat. I really like watching like the high end Samurai Showdown play because it doesn't look like anything else.
Yeah.
But that was about it. Like, it's just weird. I mean, I got nothing against Smash Brothers, but I don't like watching it. Like I did watch like half the finals. I watched the Tekken finals, and they were Tekken 7's a lot more fun to watch than any other Tekken ever has been.
It is,
for sure.
Yeah. It's a good esport game.
And like you can see, I think, especially with the way that the current scene is going, you can really see how the movement is key, almost more than being able to do the combos. Like the split second ducks of the various and they do it every time, so they know what they're doing, and it's just like the split second timing is crazy. And there's some really good matches in the Tekken 7 final. Smash Brothers, I just think it goes forever, and I can only watch Wario fight a Pokemon for so long. I mean, it's like 40 minutes. And then
Joker, you mean?
Well, I watched it. The one I gave up on was Pokemon. It was the Pokemon trainer versus Wario.
Oh, okay.
And it just went on.
Was that
and
like the
on
semifinal or something?
It was the semifinal or something. Yeah, it was just went on and on and on and on.
So I only watched replays of all the grand finals. I didn't watch anything live.
You watched the run up?
Nope. I just went to their Twitch channel and just started watching highlights. And I did watch the entirety of the Smash Brothers Grand Final. And I agree with you 1,000%. The matches go way too long, and it just feels like the same thing is happening over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, because it's not that. I mean, that game is all execution.
Yeah, and so I will say this, man. Those guys
there's no variety. It's not like watching Tekken. Every character has like 60 moves.
Right.
And these guys just like have to know when to use almost all of them and have to be ready for almost all of them from other characters. Smash Brothers is like you've basically got three or four basic setups and probably one main thing you're trying to do every time, and it just happens over and over and over, and it becomes. Because it's so fast-paced and so movement-oriented, like it just becomes like, Wario's going to throw that motorcycle out again, and, he's going to turn into Ivysaur and try to juggle him, and then, his percentage got a certain level, and he's going to turn into Charizard, and now Wario's going to try to do the fart move at him because that's going to be an instant kill, and it was just the same thing over and over. It's like either have it be 3 stock and 2 out of 3, or have it be lower stock and 3 out of 5, but... It's just too long. I mean, at least it was at the end, so like you weren't missing anything else.
That place was in. So I know it set. Did it set records for viewership for Smash?
I think so. Yeah. And I think it set records for everything viewership. It was in the 200,000s during Tekken, which I remember when they broke 100,000 for the first time when I was at covering it at Evo that time, and everybody was amazed that would ever even happen. Now it's like
it was like 264 concurrent at one point.
Yeah, it was up there, and I think Smash Brothers had the most viewers in the end. I mean,
it was last on a Sunday night. It was last, and everyone had finished doing what they were going to do on Sunday.
A lot of people do like Smash. It's just there's not a whole lot of crossover, like I think, between people who are super into Smash and super into other fighting games.
Well, they showed some crowd shots during the Smash Grand Finals, and the crowd was like empty. There were people everywhere in the arena, but when they actually started walking through the seats, it was like empty.
Well, I mean,
maybe the people who were there to see it in person weren't quite as enthused as the online audience was.
Yeah, I think the online audience is obviously much bigger.
Yeah.
Also because Smash Brothers is more of an indoor thing. Like there's the divide between the FGC and the Smash Brothers side tends to be because they're just from different worlds. Like Smash Brothers came from home video games. Almost all the rest of it came from arcades, which is a different social stratification and a different experience. So I think there's some cultural clash there. But I think both it's accepted. Like Smash is part of that community now, more or less, and it got the finale, the grand finale of the grand finals day.
It was a great match,
which Nintendo apparently went for. I mean, Nintendo's had a huge turnaround in terms of supporting it.
Yeah, just the fact that it does support it.
Yeah, I mean that alone. But like they're doing it in earnest now, and like they're holding their own stuff and really kind of making an effort, and that's good to see. Especially because I imagine Ultimate has to last a while.
Now I will say this: that Smash Grand Final was compelling. It dragged on for a really long time, but you had the up and coming challenger basically take like the world's best player to the brink, and then he just choked. I mean, he just choked and lost every match after that and lost.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to keep.
It had to be heartbreaking.
It's hard to keep that level of concentration that long. That's the other thing is the matches are long for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Which maybe adds a little something to it that other fighting games don't have.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a stamina element to it for the actual competitors.
And I mean, in that case, Leo, I mean, he got better as that grand final went on, whereas the other guy just kind of kept shirking. I mean, by the end, there was no doubt that Leo was going to come back.
Well, experience, if it goes on long enough in almost any fighting game, experience is usually going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, as Alex Valle says, round 1 is data.
Yeah.
Like he's like, don't ever care if someone loses the first round, because all that means is if they're doing it right, all that means is they learned something.
Right. They're trying to figure out the opponent.
So yeah, I mean, that's definitely not. And you saw that back and forth in a lot of those. But sometimes you get those matches with Smash where they've figured each other out and they're just at a stalemate.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the middle part of that. Like before, what's the up and comer's name again? I can't remember his name.
I don't remember. I
feel bad.
I don't follow anyone.
He played amazingly well. I mean, he had the advantage going into the grand finals.
Yeah.
He had to lose twice, and he did.
That happens a lot more often than you might. I mean, it's a little surprising to me that Bonchan won at Street Fighter Winners, because like they usually, the losers usually go the distance, even though they've had to play a lot more matches.
But that grand final, the Street Fighter grand final, was bad.
It was. I mean,
it wasn't close. It was like he got crushed.
Yeah, like I mean, he got downloaded basically.
Yeah.
And Bonchan wasn't even using Sagat, so like it was like
he was using his main.
He's using Karen as the counterpoint, and it worked.
Yeah,
I mean,
it did.
But it wasn't like one of the big nail biter dramatic finals. But yeah, I like Bonchan, so I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad
I mean, he's
won.
always up there. He's a worthy champion. I mean, he's always in like the final bracket, and he's always got a chance to win it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I didn't get to see any of the Saturday stuff, so I didn't see who won any of that. I saw Goichi break down in tears after he won the one. I don't even remember. Was that Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think he won MK.
I'm kind of excited for Haomaru in Soul Calibur.
Oh yeah,
the Samurai Showdown crossover with them is pretty cool.
Yep.
And then I'm not super clear on the details, but I guess Evo got in trouble with Konami and David Hayter for using Solid Snake in something during the Tekken final that
people thought
made people think that Solid Snake was going to be in Tekken.
Yeah,
which he is not.
Nope.
And they got roasted a little bit for that. At the Street Fighter final, they put up the wrong name for the world champion on the stage, which was doubly weird because it was Infectious, who wasn't in the grand final.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, I guess maybe you make graphics for the winner for all the top four, just in case whoever gets in.
You have them there. Yeah.
But like clearly someone clicked the wrong file.
Overall, though, I would say the production was the best it's ever been this year.
It was okay. I mean, there was a lot of weird, what I can only assume were TriCaster issues, like where the stream would get staticky, like jumpy and staticky, and I'm like, oh, I must have to restart. And then I look online, and everyone's like, what's wrong with the stream? Like, and they lost the graphics once in a while. They'd have during the break, they'd have to kind of reboot it or whatever. I mean, it's better than the old days where if something like that happened, you had to take it all down and bring it back all the way back up. And just the constant commercial breaks are maddening.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that that's how it works, but like, first off,
I mean, they still do soccer matches without TV commercials. So
first off, the fact that like you can hear what's stuff going on in the venue between the commercials they run, is weird, is annoying to me because I'm like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
Maybe I'd rather hear the commercial. Maybe I'd rather hear the commentators. Some of the commentators are really good. The ASMR cup noodles ads were disturbing to me. Like that was just bizarre.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what to think of that. Like, okay, what was the other? Oh, like when I first tuned in on Friday morning, I went up because there's Friday there's like 12 different channels to watch because it's pools for everything.
Yeah.
Everything's happening. And every single stream except Smash Brothers was on a break.
Yeah, I mean, they do that in radio and TV.
Right, but you got to stagger that stuff somehow. I mean, if these channels take a break at the hour, have these channels take a break at the half hour or something. Like, you can't, like, have all your content go to nothing once an hour. Like, that's very weird.
It is weird. But when I was talking about the production was better, I thought the stage looked better. I thought the shots that they chose was better. Yeah. I thought the lighting for the competitors was better.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely learning how to use the... Whoa. What am I...
Somehow you're listening to one of my house mixes. I don't know how that's possible.
Go away. I think I pulled up an archive of one of our videos somehow. What was I talking about?
We were talking about the production values.
Yeah, they're definitely learning how to use the Mandalay Bay stage better and more. And I think the audio is better.
Yep, for sure.
You don't have as much overlap between the on-stage announcers and the stream announcers. And the one thing I do think they need, I'm not sure. Like, now that you said that about the crowd, I kept thinking, like, God, you got to mic the crowd. There's no reaction to anything. But now I'm wondering maybe nobody was reacting.
Yeah, I mean, they were showing like a walkthrough shot on a handheld camera during the grand finals of Smash, and it was on the floor. And literally, there would be like 3 people in a row, 2 people in a row, 5 people in a row. And these rows were like 20 seats wide. But a lot of it could just be burnout. I mean, if you've been there all weekend, like, I started thinking about this.
Some of it, but I mean, there was a time when that entire grand finals day was must-see TV, basically. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe you took a dinner break during Tekken, but like, otherwise you were there the whole time. And I just feel like, not that the games are bad, but like, the audiences are so different that you don't have people that want to stay the whole time to see everything. They just want to see the game they care about.
Yeah.
Like, it's become more splintered. Like, there was a time when it was a little more general, and now I think you've got Smash is one thing, and then Tekken's a different thing, different audience from Street Fighter to some degree. And then, like, you got people that refuse to watch Mortal Kombat. There are people that don't want to watch the anime fighters, because the anime fighters do get pretty repetitive.
Yeah.
In the sense that a lot of those characters, you're working towards kind of that one best combo, and it's just sort of constantly trying to get them into. I mean, that's what fighting games are.
It is. Yeah. I mean, that's the meta of fighting games.
But some of them make that meta more interesting. Some of them have a more interesting neutral game than others, and Street Fighter tends to be one of the most interesting.
Yep.
Tekken has gotten much better. I think the neutral in 7 is more interesting to watch, not necessarily more complex or better to play, but it's more interesting to watch now.
Street Fighter's posturing and positioning is something that interests me.
Mm-hmm.
But most other fighting games, not so much. Watching two competitors in Street Fighter just do the thing where they're just trying to get that perfect distance away.
Doing the footsies.
That's interesting. Yeah. Watching that, to me, it's like, whoa. And you're seeing how quickly they can react. Mm-hmm. But in other fighting games, it's not as prevalent or as interesting for some reason.
Mm-hmm. It can be. I mean, like Samurai Showdown, I think is interesting because that neutral is so much a part of the game. It's just constantly trying to find that opening. And even when you find the opening, the combos are not tremendous, minus Genshiro and a couple of those characters that can combo pretty heavy. But it's more about kind of trying to outthink the other player rather than getting the opening and doing the combo. It's because the one combo will do a lot of damage, but it's not going to win you the game.
Yeah.
You got to keep finding your way through. So I thought that was interesting, but I only got to watch a little bit of pools on Friday. I didn't watch the finals. It was just sort of it felt dispersed. It felt
there wasn't a lot of news coming out of the show either. The only thing, and we showed you the trailer a minute ago, the Tekken Season 3 DLC stuff.
Yeah, and there's the big announcement, I think, was the new Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
Which looks really cool. I mean, visually, that trailer looked really cool. Obviously, we're not going to see specifics until later because it's not till next year. But it's nice to know that Guilty Gear's coming. I was pleased to see that Soul Calibur is getting another season. I didn't think that was necessarily going to happen. I don't know if I'll subscribe to it, but I'm glad it's happening. And new King of Fighters in development. That's cool. New free character for Samurai Showdown in September.
That's right.
There's some decent stuff. I mean, the announcements were blown by Steam for Capcom, but two solid characters and one character I've never heard of, Leona or whatever. The cop from Fatal Fury, or not Fatal Fury, Final Fight.
Yeah, really plumbing the
no idea who that is.
IP there.
But all right, sure.
Yeah.
But E Honda. I didn't even really think of until they did the opening. They go through the select screen of 2, and I'm like, oh yeah, E Honda's the only original Street Fighter 2 character not in that game.
How long it took for him to come to the game? I mean, he's popular too. He's
popular.
He's not like Dhalsim. Dhalsim to me was always the least popular character.
Dhalsim's gained a lot of popularity.
He has, yeah. But E Honda, you play in the arcades, people played as him all the time, and part of it.
He was a god.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to play as him and be effective. I don't know if he will be in the new game.
I mean, I don't know. But all I know is that last time I was at a barcade and I was playing Super Turbo, I was winning, and finally the guy switched to E Honda, and I just couldn't beat him anymore.
Because he probably just stood there and kept doing the.
He's very. There was that, but he's also very good with the anti-air fierce and the
chop,
the timing on the torpedoes, the headbutts.
Oh yeah.
Those are the key.
Yep.
I mean, you can use the torpedoes anti-air if you know what you're doing.
If you're good, yeah.
It was so that was I tried to beat. I mean, it was free play, so it was I tried to beat him 10 times. I'm like, all right, you win.
Wow.
I'm not going to do it.
He must have been pretty good then.
He was. I mean, clearly he had a pocket Honda, no question.
Yeah.
He was ready with the Honda.
So he was experimenting at first with other characters.
He was playing around. I think when at a certain point you realize that the person you're playing actually knows what they're doing, and you're like, okay, I don't have to hold back on this guy.
Right.
And he didn't, and he won.
So what would you like to see change? Do you think they're going to stick with Smash Brothers as a marquee game for next year? I mean, after the metrics, how can they not?
I don't see what else could supplant it. You know, I mean, a new Street Fighter would the only thing that could really do that, and I don't think we're getting another Street Fighter for another 2 years or more. I mean, that Street Fighter is clearly going to be on the next gen systems. So yeah, I don't see anything that could dethrone. I mean, again, the order on grand finals is, from what I understand, actually mostly determined by sponsorship. So it depends if,
really?
if Nintendo wants it
Bucks
to be
up
there.
the cash. Interesting. I didn't know that.
I mean, that's what I've heard. Like, I don't know for sure.
That's discouraging to hear.
I think that's pretty common.
Yeah, I guess.
It would also explain why like something as new as like Mortal Kombat wasn't on Sunday,
Right.
because Warner Brothers isn't willing to cough up the cash for that, because they know there's a ceiling to that game.
Yep.
But like, so if Nintendo wants to continue jumping in on that, sure.
Which it probably will.
Yeah. Or if Capcom wants to dominate again, because they'll finally have some. I mean, Street Fighter V's been in basically a content like drought since the beginning of the year. Like.
Yep.
The shakeups with Ono moving up and everything have really changed how they've been the lack of support on that game has been tangible for most of 2019. Now they got new characters, and there's supposed to be a new announcement coming later in the fall, and there's a new season next year. So hopefully there will be, hopefully the game will be a little bit revitalized by the time of Evo next year. But we'll see.
Evo next year, we'll probably get a look at Street Fighter 6, don't you think?
It's possible. I think it depends. I mean, presumably, you'll have seen the new systems by then, because it's after E3.
Yep.
So it's not impossible. I mean, I could see them saying like, Street Fighter 6 is coming at E3, and then show some stuff at Evo a month and a half later. But who can say? I mean, that game might be even further out than we think. You'd think they'd be pretty ready to move on from Street Fighter 5 at this point.
Because it hasn't done great.
Yeah, it just hasn't been what they hoped it would be. And it's, I mean, I like it. I think it's a good Street Fighter, but like the business model is infuriating sometimes, where it's just like, I just give me the game. Like, and the prices on things are a little, I mean, $5.99 for a costume?
Yeah,
like, really?
That's insane.
Like, you better really like that costume.
Yeah, for sure.
And so yeah, I mean, I think Smash Brothers is basically going to be king of the hill for this foreseeable next couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't see any game in the pipeline that could dethrone it. Maybe Dragon Ball Fighters could have, but
that was a Saturday game, right?
That was a Saturday game.
Yeah.
That was what Goichi broke
That's
down
it.
over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Dragon Ball Fighters could have been like a contender, but like
Bandai Namco dropped the ball.
Well, Bandai Namco didn't drop the ball. The company that owns the Dragon Ball license did.
Oh, really?
What's
the name of that company?
I can't remember. It's not
Like
Tatsunoko.
a Maze or something like that.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's the owners of the actual license,
The
and they
IP.
basically continually wanted basically royalty fees to be paid anytime it was used in a tournament.
Oh God.
And like a lot of tournaments had to pull the game from the roster, from the rotation, sometimes at the last minute, and like Bandai Namco just didn't have any pullover. That wasn't a call. I guess it wasn't part of the contract that said, because
that was dumb.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not
include esports.
Well, it's not dumb, because like you can't dictate terms to the people who own Dragon Ball. Like you can't dictate terms to Disney. Like and that's kind of Dragon Ball is almost that big in terms of worldwide fame and popularity. We don't have that connection to it because we're too old. It didn't air until we were in our mid-20s here.
Yeah.
But around the rest of the world, and for the generation that grew up,
I have nephews that still watch it, and they're adults now.
It's like scripture to them, basically. And like, so yeah, I think there could have been the possibility for Dragon Ball Fighters to be that big, but the people in Dragon Ball just didn't let it be that way.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, that's kind of over.
I mean, the good news is Smash was the marquee game, and the grand finals were amazing. I mean, it was an amazing match that went back and forth, and both the players just blew my mind with their skill. Even the runner-up, I was just like, damn. Like, it's just crazy how they can anticipate every move at, like, a tenth of a second. Like, it was just crazy. You'd watch, like, he played as Pokemon trainer, and the Pokemon can change. I think there's, 3 that you can change to?
Yeah, it's Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard.
And it was just crazy.
That was Tweak, I believe.
Tweak, that's it. And it was crazy watching Tweak switch through those forms on the fly, which was one thing. Just how good he was switching and then immediately taking control with that new character. But then watching Leo just, jump over him and then see him transform underneath him and then unleash an attack, like a vine attack, and know exactly where that attack is going to be, and him darting just over the top. It was just, I mean, if you slowed it down and just watched it frame by frame, it is mind-blowing what those guys do. But ultimately, it does get very repetitive, and it does drag. So I guess there's pros and cons to Smash being the big game at EVO, but I think overall it did well, and I think it's going to come back.
Yeah, I don't see anything that could be. I mean, again, you're probably looking at a money situation, but I also don't see any other company wanting to step up and make that investment any more than Nintendo does. Because Nintendo. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Nintendo's support might evaporate when they're no longer putting DLC out for the thing, but I feel like Ultimate is kind of intended to be the permanent platform for Smash Brothers. Even moving forward, next Nintendo system, you'd get Ultimate V2 or something.
Yeah.
Ultra Ultimate. I don't know. So it's in their best interest to continue keeping the scene alive, I would say.
I was also surprised how good Leo was with a character that was just released.
Well, Joker is very good. Joker is no joke.
I'm sure. But still, I mean, he's only been out for, a month and a half, something like that? 2 months?
But I mean, these guys have seen...
And then he's playing the grand finals at EVO with him. It's nuts.
Learning the new character isn't nearly as difficult as knowing the other characters. So,
that's a good point.
I think it's more about how often he'd played against Pokemon Trainer and maybe Tweak specifically.
Yeah.
Than, but a month and a half is plenty of time for someone that dedicated to learn that character.
That's crazy.
So,
not for me.
Yeah, it's not of interest to me. I find it's sad to me where the old days Sunday of EVO was one of my favorite days of the year just because it was a whole day of stuff to watch that I really enjoyed and cared about.
For me, I could go out and do the stuff I needed to do on a typical Sunday and then come back and then I could catch live the games I really cared about. And because Street Fighter was earlier in the day this year, it didn't work out that way. And then when I got home, I'm like, oh, it's Smash. I'll just watch the highlights, which I did.
But I mean, times change and golden ages don't last forever, and for someone who cares about Smash, this is the golden age.
It is, absolutely. So, great job, Evo. I thought overall...
I mean, I'd still rather watch that than almost any other kind of esport.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. It's not even close. To me, fighting games are the best esport by several magnitudes. It's not even close. And I think if you could talk to casual people, it's even more so. Because they watch something like Fortnite or League of Legends, and they have no idea what's going on. Dota, they're just like, what is this? But fighting, you can always get it. There's a health bar, there's a health bar. Whoever's is empty first loses. Everybody can understand that. It's very simple. And
although that's not how Smash Brothers works.
I was about to say, and granted, there are some games that have twists on that or Smash.
It's funny how often I run into people that don't understand how the Smash percentage thing works.
Yeah.
They're like, how can they still be alive after they're at 100% damage? I'm like, well, because it's not damage. It's just likelihood you're going to get smashed off the stage.
Yeah.
And that depends on weight and the power of the attack.
You got to deliver that
and
smash.
Yeah. Means that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Smash Brothers.
You're right, though. Most people don't get that.
No.
They're just like, wait, when you get to 175, are you dead? No, that's not how it works.
You're just more likely to die. It's the chances you're going to die next time you get tagged, basically.
Are very high, but you still have that chance. And that's something I kind of like about Smash, though.
I think it would be faster if there were just life bars.
So it would be way faster.
I'm not that. I think it's a fun mechanic when I play it. It's not that fun to watch to me.
Yeah, it does drag on. So there you go. That's EVO 2019. Congratulations to the organization. I thought it did an excellent job with the whole event again this year. Anecdotally online, the chatter seemed to be positive from people who were there. So
come a long way from a bunch of dudes in the Sunnyvale Golfland arcade.
They absolutely did. So, congrats, EVO 2019. We'll see you next year. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next.
And there was the announcement that the worst kept secret in games is finally out. Riot, Seth's company that was bought by Riot, is making a fighting game.
And it's a League of Legends fighting game.
Almost certainly, yeah.
It's a good idea. Dude, League of Legends chess is like gigantic.
Is it?
Yeah. They launched it. For the first time in my life, I went to play League of Legends the other day, and I had to sit in a queue. Because people are piling into that chess variant of League of Legends. It's gigantic.
Well, I did enjoy the blurb on Sifted where it was like Riot finally attempts to earn the plural in their name. Yeah. I'm like, they're pretty much Riot game. Aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Absolutely, but not for long.
I know they have so many games they've developed internally that they never released.
Yeah, I know.
It's ridiculous.
It is. They have money to burn.
They do. They have no reason to release something they are not 100% proud and confident in.
Yeah, and they won't.
Nope. But I would love to see Seth get a chance to put out that game. Yeah. Put out a fighting game. Because if you want me to ever learn who these League of Legends characters are, You need to put them in a fighting game, and then I will learn them.
I mean, think about the roster that they have already.
Oh, the roster would be great.
There's
I mean,
hundreds
it's right
of
there.
People.
Yeah.
I mean, their DLC will go forever. And that's if just existing characters, existing champs,
and skins for days, and I mean,
they already have skin. Like every champ has 10 skins already. Like,
I mean, it's all right there. I mean, and that's like, I mean, it'll be cool to have like fighting game specific skins, but like you have endless. You don't even need to think about it. You're just like, oh, just do these.
They're already there.
The people will still want their, they'll want their LOL skill skins in the fighting game.
Oh, yeah.
And like it's like
Also, think about the fact if what you've done in the base League of Legends game carries over into the fighting game. So if I've unlocked a skin for Teemo in the MOBA, when I buy it and I play as Teemo, do I have my skin there?
Actually, I'll modify it. If that game comes out and Riot backs it, that could be the final match in Grand Finals next year.
Probably not next year.
Depends when they're coming out.
Yeah. But it's going to be gigantic. It's going to make huge waves.
With how much money matters in terms of the lineup, and because Seth is such an integral part of the community, I would imagine that Riot would back that, and he would, have the clout. To
because they can pay for it to be first if they want to. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that one.
I mean, I hate to say it, but
can you imagine that? Like 2 years from now, like the big like events of EVO might be Smash Brothers and the League of Legends fighting game.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but League of Legends fighting game could become the biggest fighting game in the world overnight.
It could become a hell of a gateway drug.
Yeah, for sure.
Get even like 10% of the people that play League of Legends to play that fighting game.
It's biggest ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty boggles the mind, really. We'll see though. They still have to deliver a decent game.
They do. I mean, but
they'd have Seth there.
Seth is. I have no doubts about Seth.
Yeah.
All right. Seth will give us something worth playing if Riot lets us play it.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on for real this time. We're going to talk about Madden again. We did talk about it last week, but I mostly talked about the new campaign mode, which I am not a fan of. But over the last few days, I have been playing a good bit of Madden. I dove into Madden Ultimate Team. For those of you who don't know, this is Madden's most popular mode. It's the mode that is used for esports. And it's basically just fantasy football, the football video game. When I started out, I didn't get like the collector's edition, but EA did send me like a special edition that gave me a little bit more free stuff when I first started. So when I started Ultimate Team, I had 9 packs of cards to open right away. And I wanted to play Ultimate Team because, one, it's the mode that they play the most. It's the mode that's in esports, but it's also the mode that dredges up the most controversy. And I had not really checked it out since like the second or third year they launched it because they weren't changing it much. And I was like, I get it. I understand how this works. I don't need to go back and look at it. But I wanted to this year because there's so much controversy over loot boxes and how EA is handling things like that. I wanted to play it, so I had a refreshed frame of reference for it. And what I would say about Ultimate Team is EA is really smart. So when you first start playing Ultimate Team, it is just a deluge of free stuff. So at first when you boot it up, there's all these coins that you can get that you use to like train your players, but you also get 9 packs of cards. You go through those 9 packs of cards and you go back to the menu and miraculously there's like 3 more packs there. It's just literally the first probably 40 minutes I played Ultimate Team, it was just opening card packs. And then you start playing challenges. And I had kind of forgotten this because I hadn't played the mode for a long time. The challenges are so stupid. So you don't play full games. It's just like get 50 yards rushing in the first quarter and throw for a touchdown. Or get 100 yards passing and run for 2 touchdowns. And it's ridiculous because what you end up doing is you're like, okay, I need to run for touchdowns this time. So like I threw like a bomb to Juju Smith-Schuster. He catches it. He's streaking down the sideline for a touchdown. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I have to run it in. So I run out of bounds at the 1-yard line so then I can run another play and run it in. And that's what you find yourself doing the whole time. So playing by yourself, the solo structure of it is absurd, but it also is the best and easiest way to actually make headway. If you play head-to-head against other teams, against other human players with their ultimate teams, you don't earn as many rewards. So the game encourages you to play through the single-player challenges, which is what I spent the bulk of my time on. So the challenges are dumb. They make you play in weird ways that aren't really true to NFL football. So actually working through that mode was kind of crappy. And the other thing that I noticed too is after a while, the card packs start drying up. Mm-hmm. And as the card packs start drying up, it becomes more prominent. They start pointing you to how you can buy the Madden points so that you can buy packs yourself. It's basically a Pokemon football game, but you can't really earn all the Pokemon cards by playing. I guess maybe you could, but the grind that I've already seen as far as how many coins they give you through play is really low. Most of the currency that you get for free by playing are the points that you use to upgrade your existing players. So you can upgrade them. Also, if your lineup, there's like synergies, just like Fire Emblem. Like if you have players that are on the same team or players that played for the same college, they'll get performance boosts. So there's some strategy involved in how you stack your starting lineup and how you stack your rosters. The menu systems are cumbersome and awkward and slow. Also, I don't know if you know. Have you noticed a problem with Fire Emblem with menus lagging?
No,
I have. I was just anecdotally just wondering.
I've noticed like it chugs when certain things transition. Like sometimes when it zooms in for a hit or something in a battle. Most notably, there's often a weird little hitch or chug when it switches to the fishing minigame.
Yeah.
Which, considering how timing based that first hit is, that screwed me up a couple. I'm like, oh well, the frame. I mean, I don't know how you. Man, that system is so underpowered. It's just astounding.
It's kind of a miracle what they're doing with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
it's pretty amazing what they're getting out of it.
But like, just a tad more, just a little more juice in there would be good. But
like Fire Emblem, you're living in the menus in Ultimate Team, and so you really need a good UI that lets you jump between stuff really quickly instead of going forward 3 levels and then having to back out 3 levels to get back. Like that's kind of how it operates. So, I guess what I would say after playing, and I've played a good bit, I've probably played 10 hours of Ultimate Team at this point. The most fun I had was playing against other Ultimate Teams online. But you get very little rewards, and the balance in it is all jacked up, like the matchmaking. It's like you get an overall rating for your team, and I think the game tries to get other players that are kind of close to that, but it doesn't do a really good job. And the other problem, too, is if one player or if your opponent has a couple players that they've really leveled up, they stand out like a sore thumb. Like you can't block them, you can't tackle them. Also, an addendum to the X Factor stuff that I mentioned last week. Now that I've played with X Factors for a while longer, I hardly even notice them. Like they're almost impossible to notice. And for those of you who maybe didn't watch last week's show, the X Factors are kind of like the supers for players. You can't fire them off manually; they just happen organically through play. But you never notice them because players already have signature traits, each player. So Ben Roethlisberger, for instance, like his open receiver will always highlight first, which helps you. Like when you're searching the field for an open guy, there's an icon that'll pop up. And there are other quarterbacks that have that same attribute as Ben, but I've been playing with Ben. So he has this attribute where the open receiver will flash on the screen first, and that's very helpful. But that's been in the game forever. I really struggle to see the X Factor stuff at all. And the balancing in Ultimate Team I felt was kind of lacking. But I think overall that I've experienced most of this year's Madden, I would wholeheartedly not recommend buying this game. There is really very little that's been changed. Now that I've spent a lot of time with it, I'm pretty shocked at some of the review scores that have come out for this game. So many franchises get hammered so hard for just putting out the same game with a couple tweaks. And for whatever reason, Madden seemed to escape that this year. But this is basically the same game that we've had for the last 2 years. So I recommended this when I talked about it the first time, and I'm going to reiterate it here again. Go buy an old version of Madden and just update the rosters. Not that many players have moved from last season. You could probably get last year's game for like $10 or $15. The servers are still up. Online play is still there. Online franchise mode is still there. So I'm pretty surprised at the Metacritic for this game, having now spent a good chunk of time with it. But, some people are just going to buy Madden every year no matter what. And for those people, have at it. But for the people who kind of pick and choose the years to buy Madden, this is not the year to do it. So And last year will probably be the last year of Generation 8. Or maybe not. They do carry Madden a little bit longer than some
they'll probably
franchises.
still put it out for the next few years, but
yeah.
It
Nothing's going to
won't be the
change.
flagship, yeah.
Because they'll start shifting their focus over to the PS5 and Xbox One, and it'll be like the Switch versions of sports games are now, where the new version gets all the new features and the old version gets left behind. So I do not recommend buying this year's Madden. If you haven't bought it for 8 years, it is the best, kind of most refined version of that game you played like at the beginning of this generation. But there still aren't any groundbreaking features that really stand out or make the game different than it's been in the last several iterations. So there you go. I promise the last time we're going to talk about Madden NFL 20 on GameFace. Because I know there's so many sports fans that watch the show. But it is pretty much, well, I guess FIFA is hands down the biggest sports game in the world.
yeah.
I wonder if FIFA outsells Madden in the U.S.
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me at this point.
Yeah, but I think it's probably close. Whereas in
Yeah.
Europe, like they probably sell like 10,000 copies of Madden a year or something
They
like
even
that.
put it out there?
I think they do. I think they do still. Yeah.
Figure it'd be like how they don't release the cricket games here.
Yeah. Well, I think NFL. Well, actually, no. Cricket's gigantic.
Cricket's huge.
It is. It's like the second biggest sport in the
Yeah.
world, behind soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in back in '98. I was in England during the cricket World Finals between England and I think it was Sri Lanka, and you could not get away. It was everywhere. It was
Wow.
every bar we went to, every restaurant we went to. Everyone was watching it.
I've tried to watch it.
And after a while,
I can't understand it.
we spent an entire evening in a bar in Stratford-upon-Avon, Shakespeare's birthplace.
Yeah.
We spent a whole night because we slept because of jet lag and we missed the play we had tickets to. So we were like, let's just go to the pub. So we went to the pub, and it was like a locals place. We didn't realize, and like they were like, what are the Yanks doing here? But they ended up being like really nice to us, and like they were watching the cricket match, and like a couple guys like tried to explain it to us, and like
They tried to teach you.
yeah, pretty much. And like after like by like the end of like 3 days, like I understood what was happening, but like I've lost that knowledge since. Like I got it. After a while there, I understood cricket. I understood why it was interesting.
But now
and
you
it was.
forgot.
It was like it was super high. It was the World Championships. It was super high level play. And everywhere you went was excited about it. So I got excited about it because it was just like a new thing.
Ian McGar says in chat that he checked, and even in the States, FIFA dominated Madden.
I feel like like I said, it doesn't surprise me. Like
Yeah.
soccer's gotten so much bigger.
It has. I mean, the MLS is like thriving.
Yeah, and also like
expanding.
demographics change, and you've got huge Latino populations that like care about football more than football.
You also have the hate campaigns against tackle football right now.
Right, yeah.
Everyone telling parents not to put their kids
And
in
I mean,
it.
when I was growing up, I was more interested in soccer video games because I played soccer.
Right.
I didn't play
Yeah,
football.
it makes
I
a
played,
difference.
I played
Absolutely.
soccer, so I understood it better, and it was more like something I could identify with.
Yeah, and football is just getting murdered right now as far as youth sports is concerned. Like, no one's playing it. Like, all these little Pee Wee and Pop Warner leagues are folding. Parents just don't want their kids getting concussions. I can't say I blame them.
Hard to blame them.
Yeah, I don't know. I played football all the way through high school, and it taught me a lot about life.
I feel like sports will do that in general.
They
though.
do, but football in particular, because it's such a physical sport where you're experiencing physical pain every 35 seconds. You have to learn to fight through pain to accomplish your goal with a team.
That's definitely something I want my 10-year-old to learn.
It taught me a lot, though. I mean, it made me tough, and not just physically and able to take abuse or punishment. It made me mentally tough. And I have tons of nieces and nephews. I have one nephew that's playing football. Back when I played football, everybody I knew played football, and all my relatives played football.
I think there
Been a
are
huge shift.
I think there are other routes to mental toughness than ramming your head into another kid over and over again, though. There's got to be ways that don't lead to CTE.
I mean, there probably are.
Have them lift weights or something. That hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt.
I mean,
But-
obviously that's part of football too. But
It is, yeah. It is a part of it, yeah. I don't know. I played all the sports, and I feel like football taught me the most of all of them. I played every sport.
I think part of that is just the,
baseball, basketball, soccer, football, all of them.
yeah, but I think part
Hockey.
of that is just the culture around football that exists in, especially high school football that exists in this country. And if if that culture shifts, that culture will spring up around something else eventually.
It will. But I think the other thing about football that set it apart for me is that it's 11 people that you're working with at a time. And I realize soccer also has 11 people, and baseball has 9 or whatever.
Winning 11.
Right. But with football, every play, all 11 people matter. Play baseball, you put your worst player out in right field. He may not get a fly ball all game.
Canseco.
I mean, right, but like almost any sport, soccer,
I was also right field, so I got no room to talk.
Yeah, if you're a defender in soccer, you stand back like the whole time, and you only interact with certain. Football.
Well, baseball is bizarre because it's the only game in the world. I think it's the only game in the world where the defense has control of the ball at all times.
Right. With football, all 11 people, every single play has to do their job every time. If one person doesn't do his job, it all goes to crap. And no other sport is like that. So I think football teaches you lessons that other sports don't. It also teaches you to be tough.
Everyone will let you down. That is.
You're right.
Good lesson for the corporate world.
No, but you're right. You have to learn that lesson eventually, and you do learn that in football. Like that guy beside you, if he doesn't do his job, you look bad because while it's happening live, they're just like, oh, the whole left side didn't.
Yeah,
do
maybe
it right.
you're the guy who got run down and looked terrible, but it happened because
some other guy didn't do his job. Yeah. So anyway, I really love playing football, and I was glad to see I have at least one nephew that's playing. I had a blast playing it, and I didn't really get too hurt. I got concussions, but it only affected me a little.
That explains a lot.
What did he say?
That explains a lot.
Andre's cracking a joke. There he is. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the ESA. The ESA.
Speaking of letting down.
Speaking of being let down. Yeah, the ESA and E3. So this past week, it was revealed by, Patrick, maybe you know more about this than I do, but the end result is that the ESA allowed the press contacts and influencer contact list to be accessible on its website. In some cases, those lists from, did you say 2004?
Originally it was just the 2019 media list. That was what broke, I think, on Friday night. And Klepek was involved, but it was broken by this woman, Sophia something. She's working for Colin Moriarty right now, which, okay.
Shocker.
But she had the story, and she knew about it, I think, since June. And she was trying to, get all the ducks in a row journalistically, but she was talking to Klepek because Klepek had, Klepek breaks stuff all the time and he had connections with ESA. And I think, according to Klepek, I think he's the one who contacted ESA and said, this is going to break. You need to take this down.
So did she reach out to Klepek?
I think so,
or did Klepek find out on his own?
I believe she reached out to him.
Okay.
And this is going off what Klepek had said about this. So it's kind of his version of events, I guess.
It's hearsay.
And he's contacted them, and they said, okay, we'll take it down because the story's coming. And then they didn't do it right, and the cash was still available. And he said to her, well, you need to wait on the story because they didn't do it right, so they need time to completely scrub it so no one can access it anymore. And she said, well, I don't want to get scooped, and she went with it anyway.
So she ran it because she was afraid someone else would run the story.
Right, because at that point, a bunch of other people knew.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's irresponsible and pathetic. That it's not, considering the level of threat that some of these people have been exposed to, and a lot of them have finally moved on or changed their address, and now this has been exposed again. It's very irresponsible. It's not how journalism works. It sucks if you get scooped because you're doing the right thing, but you still got to do the right thing. So I'm not very impressed by that. Is she is she the bad guy in this scenario? Because no, the ESA is the one that did the stupid thing. It's not even really a leak because they did it intentionally. Like the ESA thought it was there as a resource for people to contact media, exhibitors to contact the press, and it's just like, no.
I mean, they have our home addresses,
right?
Now.
I mean,
it's just floating out there.
There's no communication difficulty between the media and the industry. I mean, that's the media's job is to make sure that they can contact us, right? And so then yesterday it comes out from other reporters that until I think Monday morning, because they couldn't do it. They held it over the weekend because the ESA wasn't going to be at work to fix the problem. The media lists for 2004 and 2006 were also up the whole time for who knows how long.
Well, they got my old address too.
But it was So it was name, place of work, title, phone number, address, email, etc. I'm pretty sure all mine would not. I've been under major corporations for all those years, so I don't think that would be my. Although I did get a lot more robocalls yesterday, so maybe my phone number's in there. I haven't looked at the list.
I think the phone number bothers me more than the addresses, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a target for like jerks and weirdos, really.
Until you are.
Until you are. But I'm there's some people on that list that really didn't want their private information out there, and the idea that you can't trust the ESA with that is bonkers.
It is bonkers.
I mean, I have called that a clown shoe organization many times in my time. But this is astounding.
For the data from 2004 to still be there?
What the hell?
That's insane.
Like, what is even... Like, none of that's even relevant. I mean, is there a single person in that list that wouldn't have moved on to a different set of contact info by now? Like, what?
You know what? I think I still have the same phone number I had in 2004.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, I've had the same phone number for a long time. But my phone number, I don't think, was on that through G4, because G4 would have put our office,
your
work number.
Yeah.
Like... There would have been, like, none of that information is current at this point. So why is it up? Like, what? Like, I mean, probably just.
Why was it ever up?
Why
was it ever publicly accessible ever?
It's nonsense. It's completely. I mean, and I don't know the legality of. I mean, it's not a legal thing, I don't think, in America. But I know that mishandling of private information is punishable by very large fines in the European Union. I don't know if European Union would have jurisdiction over that because the ESA is a U.S.-based company, but they mishandled European citizens' data, so I don't know if the EU has some kind of recourse for that. I don't know how that works.
The recourse doesn't freaking matter anyway. So
well, it matters in the sense of, like, you got to hit the ESA for this somehow.
Yeah. I mean, but
the damage is done.
What does that do, though?
I don't know. Like.
It just makes E3 crappier next year because they don't have as much money. Like,
well, I don't know what happened. What happens now? Like, do the media people want to go again?
I don't know. I mean, how much do you think this is going to influence whether exhibitors? Because without the exhibitors, there's nothing. So how much do you think it's going to affect exhibitors wanting to go back to the show? Do you think
if I were an exhibitor, I sure would be looking at how they handle people's data. I mean, it happened just to media this time.
Right,
but
see, that's the thing. It was us and it wasn't them.
Right.
And so maybe they're like, the ESA screwed up, but...
Possible, but at the same time, it's like if they screw up that hard on us, they could screw up that hard on you.
They can. Absolutely. That's a psychological investigation, I think, is like how that plays into the mindset of how important.
I mean, I think at the very least it makes it that much harder to convince the people, the companies that have already left,
to come back. Absolutely, it makes a big difference. But like Equifax, when it was breached, like I lost my identity in that, and people ruined my credit with that information.
You've had a lot of that kind of thing.
I had to fight with Verizon. It was like an 8-month process after I figured out it had even happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, that even happened. Remember, there was somebody at Tech TV that was doing that, and they got you after we moved down here.
That's right. Yep, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, that caused me. I still have to file my taxes with a PIN number, and I still cannot get direct deposit from my tax returns. They have to send me hard checks
because of that.
Because of that, still all these years later. The Equifax thing was even worse because Verizon, and I said this on today's High Score, but some people may not have watched it. The way it works is that these people, like Verizon, these companies, they're incentivized to not make it easy for you because they realize if you solve the case, they're never getting their money. Right. So they make you jump through like 8,000 hoops to get it removed from your credit because they figure eventually you'll get sick of it and you'll just pay it. And I refused. Out of principle, probably if I looked at the time that I spent on it, I spent more than that.
I love this B-roll. It's just like It's just like, these are the people dancing because they got our phone numbers.
That dude right there just got my digits. Anyway, it's getting your identity stolen. If you've never had it happen to you, I don't think you can appreciate how much it sucks. It's this thing that happens that trickles down into everything. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm good. And then you get it fixed. And you look, and it's fixed on one credit reporting agency, but not fixed on the two. It's a nightmare. The good news is they didn't get Social Security numbers with this. That's really the key to screwing up your life. Once they get that stuff, that's really bad. But having all the rest of it, you can do a lot of stuff with that information.
I mean, the concern here is stalkers, death threats.
Yep.
You know, the
Physical harm.
crazy people that have, you know, a lot of the people on that list have been targeted. I mean, Klepek is a target.
I've been targeted.
He filed a police report, but the police were like, we can't really do anything about it. Like, they put a little note on his account or something that says, like, somebody might come after him, but, like, what can you do? There's nothing you can do, really.
Yeah. And
Like,
then Equifax.
the police and the law enforcement and, like, the legal system are really still not in this country equipped to deal with internet origin crime.
No, there aren't even laws in place for them to deal with it properly. They have to, like, look at other laws and try to apply them. And it doesn't always work. And then when these companies do get caught, like Equifax, it's like, what did it get charged with, like $5 billion? I don't even remember what it was.
I don't know.
When you first heard it, it seemed like a gigantic settlement. So they announced this past week, okay, everyone who's affected gets $125. I was like, that's nothing, but it's better than
You might even not get that.
And now it turns out they're like, go get the free credit monitoring. It's like, bro, my bank does credit monitoring for free now. There's no value in credit monitoring anymore, at least for
Especially
me.
not from them.
Yeah, why would I want to have them? It's insane. So I don't think that this is anywhere near as bad as like the Equifax breach, but I think it's more personal.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Like, there are people who have already targeted the people who are on that list. And myself included, I still live at the address that they got. So they can't get into my place because I live in an apartment complex and everything, but still.
And there's people, I personally know at least a dozen people who have moved or changed their address or changed things, whatever, to get away from that kind of thing over the last, 6 to 10 years. And now they're back at square one.
Yep.
They're just waiting for it to happen.
So the fallout. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's gonna hurt the ESA in any way. I don't think people are not going to go to E3 that would have gone to E3. I don't think it's going to change anything for them. They have the benefit of time, meaning E3 is like 11 months away still, and a lot of people will have forgotten about this by the time E3 rolls around again.
I'll tell you this much: I'm not going to take any shit from the registration people about media anymore.
Yeah. I think the other problem too is that people just aren't sympathetic to people getting their identity stolen. If you've never had it happen to you, it's hard to understand how much it sucks. And if you've never been harassed by people online before, you can't understand why you would be afraid that the internet just got your address. Like, if you don't have to deal with this stuff, you can't really comprehend what it's like when you have to. Like, internet hate campaigns, like, people who have never gone through one of those have no right to ever talk about them, because it's this thing that you don't get until you go through it. And
I mean, to me, this should be the end of the ESA. Like, I think it should be a new organization should be built up that does the same thing, and the ESA should be torn down, and that should be the end of it. Like, this is so, like, basic and so much like the professed function, not necessarily the actual function, but the professed function of the ESA is to be a shield,
a protection
against mistreatment and horrible things that can happen from a legislative point of view, from a social point of view, whatever. And especially in light of everything that's happened since Gamergate started and all that, like, this is just an absolute debacle. Like there's no explanation or excuse that can suffice, and it should be the end of them. It won't be, but it should be the end of it. Like, we need a better lobby organization.
We do. It's been really bad the last couple of years, and it did just get a new president. I tend to want to lean on.
I mean, I do feel sorry for that guy.
Giving him a chance, because this isn't his fault. All this stuff happened after E3. He wasn't in control of his website or whatever. But it is a really, really bad look. And I hope nothing. What if something terrible does happen out of this?
I mean, a lot of terrible things have happened this week.
They have.
So there's a non-zero chance.
And I think the timing of this too. with all the shootings that happened in the U.S. over the last few days. The
Which
timing,
now video games have been dragged into.
right.
So.
The timing could not be worse
Yeah.
for this to happen because people are hyper vigilant about angry people getting their contact information. So, it's bad. But you're right. The gaming industry deserves better than what the ESA is giving it right now. I would say that if it came down between the ESA being dissolved, basically if it came down between the ESA or E3, it's hard for me to say get rid of the ESA if there won't be an E3 next year. Because there probably wouldn't be an E3 next year if they decided to ditch the ESA.
No,
or the
probably
ESA
not.
would go ahead and do it and nobody would go. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the results are. I mean, if nothing of note occurs, except a bunch of people got scared because the potential for harm was there, but nothing actually really happens, then next year everyone's going to grumble. But they'll
go back.
But if something really bad happens, if
And they
death,
can
if
tie
a
it
death
to that.
happens, if and it can be tied to that's how they got the information. Good luck.
The ESA will definitely be gone because it will be sued out of existence.
I mean, Europe, I think the EU can still come at them for some stuff. I mean,
Yeah, probably.
they're going to face some definite fines.
Yeah. Class action, something probably.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
I hope we get more than $125.
It's just, first of all, that website is pathetic.
Oh, it's awful.
It was built in like 2001 and hasn't been updated since. It doesn't operate properly. It's clunky. It's old. It's
embarrassing.
ugly. It's embarrassing.
Even without this, like sending someone to that site, and this is your major lobby organization that represents the industry, and that's what your website
that
looks
represents a technology industry that's on the bleeding
electronics
edge.
in your damn name.
Yeah.
Software is in your damn name.
But it just shows you they'd rather write checks for their own salaries than build a website.
Yeah, it's not electronic. It's entertainment in it.
What? No, it's Electronic Entertainment Expo, E3.
Yeah, but I meant ESA stands for Entertainment Software Association.
Yeah,
or whatever.
not Electronic Software Association.
Yeah, because software is electronic.
Yeah,
by definition.
Yeah, I guess
unless you're
it's
talking
redundant.
About,
I guess.
Yeah, unless you're talking about socks.
Yeah.
This is different.
So once again, the ESA has completely dropped the ball. I don't know how many more chances it gets, but my guess is some of the big players who contribute a ton of money to the ESA every year goes and says, "Look, like you guys got to clean this up. We can't let you represent us if this is the stuff that you're doing." It's ugly. But, luckily this is one of those stories that doesn't make it to the CNNs and the NBC.coms and stuff like that because it'll insulate the industry a little bit from shame. But
it also doesn't matter because the people that are the concern here aren't watching CNN.
Right.
They already got it.
Yeah.
They already know.
That's true. Yeah. So ESA, clean it up. You got to clean up your backyard, man. You got to get it locked down. You can't be operating like this. It's like
you better hope nothing happens. Like, I would set aside some money, right? Not just for fines. I'd set aside some money to start paying some media people's like medical bills.
Yeah, it could be possible. Absolutely. There are certain people that have been targeted for years, and now those people that are targeting have their information if they didn't already, which they probably did anyway. So
entirely possible, but like this doesn't help.
It definitely doesn't. All right, it's time to move on.
And somewhere out there, our Tech TV and G4, our Tech TV addresses are getting spammed to hell and back.
It's true.
Because 2004 would have been our Tech. We would have been Tech TV.
Yeah,
so.
we would have been. Yeah, and those are long gone.
Oh yeah.
So good luck with that one. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to talk next about an oldie. But not necessarily...
But now a newie.
But not
That's about as far as I'll go with it.
Not necessarily a goodie. And that is Metal Wolf Chaos XD. This game was originally an Xbox exclusive developed by From Software. And when people heard it was coming back, there was jubilation in the streets. People were dancing and celebrating. And we kind of said, hey, you may want to slow your roll a little bit.
I mean, it was only in Japan. It never came here. Which is one of the reasons it was sort of infamous, was because...
The forbidden fruit.
It's a crazy premise, and it seems like it should be cool, but like... Yeah, because the premise is basically... So it's several years after the first quarter of the 21st century, and like something...
So 2025.
2025, late 2020s, a bunch of economic problems, immigration I mean, it's a little like the opening crawl is like prophetic. It's like basically all this stuff happens and America goes like super weird and like paramilitary coup d'etats rise in all the major cities, and the 47th president, Michael Wilson, I think is his name, has to get in his giant mech and stop the vice president from conquering the country with like all the military, because the military, I guess, is sided with the vice president.
Oh,
and so the opening thing is like you get in the president gets in the mech and he busts out the front of the White House, which I think you're about to see here, and starts a huge fight and begins gunning down American soldiers with machine guns and bazookas, which is an interesting way of handling the situation. But so yeah, the story is basically the president and his assistant are the last hope for freedom in the world, and have to use a mech suit to fight the entire American military, which is being led by a traitorous vice president. There was a time this was very fantastical. I mean, the mech suit is a little unbelievable, but the rest of it is not completely
so
off
anymore,
the board anymore. But the problem is, and this has really been a criticism even going back to when it originally came out, it's a lot more fun to tell someone what this game is about than to play it.
Yeah.
It is basically a mod of Armored Core, and this is a remaster. I mean, it is a remake / remaster. I think it's more of a remaster, judging by the texture quality.
No, originally it was published at 720p.
Yeah, I mean, it looked pretty good for the time.
Yeah,
I mean, the original Xbox. But the problem, so I went live last night. I played like 2 missions. I played 2 missions because that's all I could take, basically. I mean, it's not good. It's very floaty. There's the weapons don't feel like they have a lot of impact, which was actually a problem that some of the Armored Cores had at the time. It's just thoroughly mindless and
clunky.
It's
very
clunky.
It. Just annoying to play.
And it's just, I mean, you're seeing some really cherry-picked scenes here.
These
in
are
the B-roll.
trailers.
Like,
yeah,
they're real. The rest of it doesn't look like you're mostly looking at like, when you
buildings made out of 2 polygons.
You blow a truck up or a tank up, and you see it pop up and bounce around the way vehicles did when it was like we want with our vehicles to have physics, but we don't actually want to use a physics engine kind of thing.
We're just gonna put Havoc on everything.
It's not even Havoc. It's not
really?
even as good as Havoc. I mean, I don't think it is. I mean, it reminds me more of anything than anything else. It reminds me of Earth Defense Force.
Okay, it looks like Earth Defense Force.
Yeah, there's some Earth Defense Force in there. It's all voice acted. I think it's using voice acting from the original. It seems to be English dialogue written by Japanese speakers. It is not how anyone speaks in English. Very bizarre. It reads like a raw translation. It reads like a raw translation of an anime. And if that entertains you, you'll love it. If you just find it embarrassing, which is really more where I'm at, it's very hard to sit through.
I mean, let's be honest. The only reason
Richard Hawke there is the vice president. So the vice president in 2 administrations from now will apparently be Solid Snake. Like he looks like a Metal Gear character. He looks like Solid Snake had a kid with Revolver Ocelot.
I mean, let's be honest. If this game weren't developed by From Software, nobody would care.
Well, I think no one cared that it was From. I mean, From Software hasn't had a reputation until not Armored Core, Dark Souls.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is this new generation of people only know From Software from Dark Souls?
Well, they would care because this is kind of a legendary game in one of those, like, it's a ridiculous game that never came here. So like, there's an allure to it. That's always been I mean, that goes back to Batman on the Genesis, when I think it was Die Hard, the game fan, reported on it and said it was the greatest thing ever made, but it's never coming here. Sorry, you'll never get to play it. And then it came out here eventually, and it was like, nah, this is kind of mediocre, actually, Mr. Halverson. Like,
well, I think he has other reviews you should pick a fight over.
Oh, I mean, Sonic 2006 is the dumbest review I've ever read in my life.
Well, he give it a perfect 10?
He gave it a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
And then he downgraded that to an 8.5 out of 10 when he said, they told me they were going to fix the load screens, and they didn't, so it gets an 8.5 out of 10.
Anyway,
boy.
The magazine days.
Look up that and look up the Cyber Force. Was it called? Cybermorph. The Cybermorph review from the Jaguar, where he ends the review by saying, "Come pet the cat."
Most people watching this have no idea who he even is. He's been gone for so long.
He has, but he ran Die Hard Game Fan, which kind of created the console war culture back in the day.
Yeah.
And then he ran Play Magazine, which was fun to read for your like monthly dose of bat shit. But like that was like
it was like a really glossy.
It was very well. I mean, his magazine's always had the best layouts and some of the best graphics and stuff like that. And like it was all about kind of like
it was flashy, but the substance
in the days of
wasn't
screenshots, you couldn't get any better. But if you tried to read it, you were just like, "What the hell? Like, are you okay?" But like Metal Wolf Chaos is sort of the exact. If it was the exact kind of game that like magazines like that would champion. It's like, it's amazing, and you'll never get to play it because you'd have to buy, import a copy of it, which after it wasn't a hit there either. It was shortly after it was out of print, you were paying $200 for a copy of this thing, and that's on top of shipping from Japan, and then you couldn't play it without a Japanese Xbox, or in our case, we had debugs.
Is that true? Was the Xbox region locked?
I believe it was.
I don't remember. Actually,
that was definitely one of the reasons I never got it. I never got it for two reasons: A, it was too expensive. And B, I didn't have an Xbox to play. Also because everyone who played it said it was terrible. And then we eventually did get a copy of it for like one of our Weird Games things or something at Tech TV, and which we played on and it was awful. And it's not any better now. And I mean, you might have kind of some nice nostalgia of like, hey, remember when games sucked?
Look at how much better they are now.
I mean, you don't really get like C-list garbage like this
anymore.
The way I mean, and there's a cult around that kind of thing. I mean, it's called in Japan it's called kusoge, which is short for kuso gaming, like shit games.
Yeah,
it literally means shit games.
Yeah,
and like you enjoying playing kind of these bad to mediocre games that are sort of like it's like watching those. It's like the equivalent of watching schlock horror movies on VHS.
Yeah,
it's that kind of and like I get that. That's an appeal, but for $25.
Too much.
Yeah, I mean, I was annoyed that Soul Seraph cost me $15, and this is $10 more. And it's more of a game, I guess, but like it's still kind of like I mean, I'm not looking forward to going back and playing more of it. To tell you that much.
Will you?
Maybe just to make myself feel better about the money.
The money.
Although I don't, I'm really thinking about asking, doing the refund application.
Oh yeah.
For it.
You can do that.
Because I definitely haven't played 2 hours of it.
Yeah.
Or whatever, so.
Yeah, you should do it.
I might try that.
We're not going to talk about it on here again, so you're off the hook.
Because, like, wow. Like, I mean, I knew what I was getting into, but I don't know, I guess my tolerance for that kind of thing has just vanished over the last, like, 16 years or so.
Yeah, From Software isn't one of those studios that is making great games today, and then you go back and look at their back catalog, and the games are just as good.
No,
I mean not how From Software was.
You can see like the primitive makings of it, but it's like it took a while for From's games to start walking upright. Let's put it that way.
It's like all Naughty
the
Dog's
evolution
games
was
are good.
slow.
All Insomniac's games are good.
Also, like the real roots of Dark Souls are Kingsfield.
Yeah.
The Armored Core stuff was sort of its own thing, and as much as I would be interested to see them go back to Armored Core now, it is hard to go back to Armored Core now.
They won't.
The bread and butter is Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It's the fantasy swordy pokey thing.
Souls likes.
Yep.
That's what butters their bread for sure, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
So yeah, maybe Metal Wolf Chaos gets amazing in Mission 4, but I may
You're
never
not going to find out.
Yeah, I just bounced right the hell off this thing.
Yep, we just dodged that bullet for you, people. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about WWE 2K20. It was just unveiled this week, and I will say this. For whatever reason, this franchise never gets hardly any pre-promotion until, like, the week before it comes out. But in this case, 2K has got way out ahead of it. Like, this is way early for us to ever hear anything about the new WWE game. And the reason that is because they have changed developers. Did you hear this?
Yeah, I heard they've broken up with Ukes.
Yeah,
basically.
So Ukes is a consultant on this game, and the studio making the new WWE is Visual Concepts.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Huh.
So Visual Concepts did NFL 2K, they do NBA 2K.
They did all those sports.
All the Sega sports games.
They revolutionized sports games
they did.
Back in the day.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yep, I agree with that.
Like they're the first company to really make EA sweat.
Yeah, I mean, they had a football game that played online.
Yeah.
That's a huge freaking
And basketball. I mean, the basketball game. I remember that was. I mean, still NBA
Still.
2K is. But I remember
gold
back in the
standard.
day, NBA 2K was kind of like it was like, hey, this is how good a basketball game can be. EA. Like,
Yeah.
maybe live should
Pay
not
attention.
suck for
Yeah.
It was EA had the field to themselves for years and years, all through the 32-bit era at the very least.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, 2K comes in with the Dreamcast and is just like,
Just took it over.
Check this
Just
out.
took that genre over immediately.
Yeah.
And has never let go since then. So Visual Concepts has the...
EA had to get an exclusive deal with the NFL to make them stop.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So Visual Concepts has the pedigree. It's a great developer. It's never really worked in a combat sports game, though, which is a little off-putting if you're a fan of this franchise.
I mean, at the same time, it's not like these things can really get worse.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, Ukes had just done such a terrible... Not terrible, but it just hadn't really introduced anything worthwhile or new for a long time. It's also a franchise that continues to go back and find features of the old games and then try to market them as new ideas.
And it's just like, they don't... Like, I have all my N64 games still around, and like I went back and played some of WCW NWO Revenge a while back, and that game's still fun.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's
All those
still-
N64 wrestling games are still fun because the mechanics are good.
Yeah, and that was Ukes.
Like, I know, but it's like an era ago or whatever.
Oh,
But I
two
loved how
eras,
you
several
could, like,
eras.
beat somebody just by tweaking their ankle the whole match. Seriously, like, you could concentrate on, like, one body part and win the match, like, breaking their finger over and over. Like, you just don't really get that in wrestling games. I think what happened was, over time, wrestling games became more concerned with the pomp and circumstance of wrestling and less concerned about the actual wrestling.
Yeah, but like they don't even
started
do that well.
Yeah, I know, but they started devoting the resources to these corny backstage cutscenes and all this other dumb crap instead of just making the wrestling game fun to play. I don't like wrestling. I haven't cared about wrestling since I was like 6 years old. But I played the living crap out of those N64 wrestling games. Like, it was the multiplayer game of choice at me and all my friends' houses for like months on end. And no one's ever managed to recapture that. It just hasn't happened for whatever reason. We have all these indie wrestling games that are coming out. They're not great either. It's just been kind of a black hole. But it appears that finally 2K has decided enough is enough. And we're going to at least try to get this franchise to the place that it deserves. Because, let's be honest, if it made a really great wrestling game, it would do huge numbers.
I mean, you really need the three pillars. You need gameplay that works. You need
storylines that matter.
Storylines that work and storylines that matter, and frankly, storylines that are better than what they're doing in the actual
On the
wrestling
show.
these days. Because like that's not a high bar.
Well, wrestling right now is at an all-time low in viewership.
Yeah. Well,
It's
WWE,
it's in really dire straits.
But and then you need the creator wrestler. You need to have a very powerful creative system to let people make whatever they want to make. And like, I mean, it's not like that's an easy thing to do, but you think at a certain point you've iterated on it enough that you would get some improvements that would stick, and it just never happens.
And my guess is that's why Ukes was taken off.
I figure, yeah.
I'm sure 2K was like, look, man, we have given you so many chances to get this right, and you just can't do it.
No.
And at a certain point, you got to cut your losses and move on. And I think
Visual Concepts is not a bad option. I mean,
that's what I was going to say.
They definitely know how to iterate. They know how to make the games better every year. They know how to capture the atmosphere. They know how to capture the feeling of being there. And
their gameplay is good.
Gameplay's solid, and they know what Ukes has done. I'm sure there's people on the Visual Concept teams that have played No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000 and all those old classic games, and they know like if we can get a permutation of the system to work in a modern setting, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would love to have a wrestling game that I enjoy playing again. Like, I used to love the Attitude Era stuff.
Yeah, I don't not play wrestling games because I don't like wrestling. I refuse to play wrestling games because they're bad.
Yeah.
I like the concept of wrestling, and I enjoy playing the games. So here's some of the new features that are supposed to be coming to 2K20. There are 2 separate campaigns, one for the male character and one for... And actually, the general theme overall of this year's game is that women are more tightly and intelligently integrated into it. So you have 2 separate campaigns. You have one where you can play as a woman, one you can play as a man. They said that they do kind of overlap a little bit. It's called 2K Showcase, and it stars Becky Lynch. I don't even know who she is.
I know the name, but I couldn't pick her out of a lineup.
She's one of the 4 horsemen. I don't even know.
Okay.
I don't even know what that is.
That's a kind of a long-standing trope in the WWE.
I mean, I've heard of it. It used to be dudes, though.
Yeah, it used to be the women have. There's been a real renaissance in women wrestling in the WWE over the last several years.
I can see why.
Well, I mean, they always had the diva crap. They always had like the girls wrestling in bra and panties matches and stuff. But like they finally started letting the women wrestle. Like do actual. I mean, they've got some super talented women in there, like doing this crazy high flying stuff. And like, I mean, they're some of the best things going in the WWE right now. And the WWE, Vince finally recognized it basically. And they got big matches at WrestleMania last couple of years. I mean, it's they've really honed in on that, and to make them a big part of the video games makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And it's not like it's actually not where they're creating a unique scenario for Becky Lynch to play through. It's actually like a historical look back on her career that you play through. And I guess that's the same for the guy. I can't remember the guy's name. He's the other person on the cover, though. 2K Towers returns. Apparently that's the most popular mode in WWE. My Career returns. Also for both men and women, which is a big deal. The big new mode is mixed tag matches, or the big new match type is mixed tag matches, which is weird to think that they never had those. I thought they had those even in the N64 wrestling games.
Was it tag matches?
Mixed tag, meaning women and men wrestling together.
I don't think so. No. I mean, maybe if the female characters were just like 2 or 3, like you'd be able to pick them in that. But like,
do you remember what the female characters looked like in this?
Oh yeah,
so bad.
Because usually they were relegated like managers and stuff. I don't recall
Elizabeth.
That.
That's when I watched wrestling.
I mean,
that's that whole era with Elizabeth.
I mean, mixed tag is a new thing in the WWE anyway, so like they're probably highlighting it just because it's a new feature in the real life wrestling.
I didn't realize that. And then as far as wrestlers are concerned, China is going to be in the game posthumously. She's never been in the
China.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
not
China,
the country.
I was like, China's a big market. Yeah.
We're putting China in the game. No, China, the wrestler.
Okay.
She's going to be in there posthumously. She's never been in a WWE game.
Really?
Yeah. That's what the press release says.
I swear I played her in like SmackDown or something.
I'm wondering if she was just, being tough with her license and was like, no, you need to pay me more.
Well, her contract, it was a whole I mean, you got to read her book to learn the details, but there was a whole thing where that contract kind of fell apart at a certain point. There's a lot of internal drama.
Seems like everything in the WWE is internal drama.
Yeah, well. There's a lot of egos rubbing up against each other in any kind of performance kind of
particularly
scenario.
That
but
one.
That is it's like imagine doing television or like stage work. It's like stage plays, except your whole job when you actually get out to perform is to beat up the other person.
Yeah.
When all you have is a hammer.
Yep. You're gonna smash.
Or a hammer fist.
Yeah. Also, Hulk Hogan's returning for the first time in some years. They didn't say how many, but they said for the first time in years, Hulk Hogan returns. Mankind is returning.
Oh, yeah.
Along with the Rock and Sock Connection.
Oh, wow.
I guess that's his tag team or whatever.
That was Mankind, because Mankind has the sock.
Right.
Sock puppet. And he teamed up with The Rock. And so they were the Rock and Sock Connection.
I missed that whole era.
It was a good era.
Was it?
Oh yeah, I was not a wrestling. I didn't pay attention to a lot of wrestling, like because I was aware of it. I watched it in the 80s. I watched the first couple WrestleManias. I remember the Undertaker showing up for the first time.
That's when I stopped watching pretty much.
And that kind of like fell out for the mid 90s, and then like the late 90s, the Attitude Era. Like I got way back into it with like the Generation X and the rise of Triple H and The Rock and Stone Cold and all that. Like I thought all that stuff was super cool.
It was all 80s for me. Once the wrestling left the 80s, I never really engaged with it again.
Like I mean that's why I'm excited to see The Rock in almost anything. Dwayne Johnson almost anything is because I knew him as The Rock back then.
Yeah.
And like he was in fact the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. And he remains one of the most electrifying men in entertainment.
Period. Not just sports entertainment.
Yeah.
I remember people imitating him, so I remember all his catchphrases.
Oh yeah,
but I never actually saw them with my own 2 eyes.
I saw Raw a couple times, and I saw once in San Jose. I think it was 2001. It was like early to mid 2001. It was the show where Triple H tore his hamstring at the end. The big main event at the end was he tore his hamstring and they carted him off and the lights went out and that was the end. Like there was no.
Was it fake or real?
It was real. He really ripped his hamstring and like he didn't come back for a long time. But like he got hurt and everything just sort of stopped and the medics came out and took him away and the lights went down and that was the end. Like there was no improv. There was no finishing the match. It was just like the match was done. We're done. Go home.
What did they do when that one guy died when he fell off of that cage?
Oh, they shut everything down.
They ended it.
But I remember The Rock was there. He wasn't in the main event, but he was in earlier in the show, and he came out to do his promo. And I remember he come in. The music starts and everybody goes completely insane, and he comes out and he says, finally, because his whole thing was finally The Rock has come back to insert city you're in,
right.
And he just goes, finally, and it's the loudest thing I've ever heard in an arena. Like he was saying 3 words of his speech at a time, and then there'd be an applause break, and like you couldn't hear. This was the San Jose Arena,
wow.
Man. You couldn't hear the music over the crowd. Like it was. I have never seen anything like it. It was.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there looking at him and hearing him and like why, exactly why, because you want to do it too. You want to scream at him too. It's amazing. Like that's one of the most charismatic human beings I've ever seen.
For sure,
it's incredible. So yeah, I can understand in this, even though he retired officially this week
from what
wrestling.
Oh, he did.
I mean, he's still doing stuff periodically and stuff, but he's officially retired from wrestling.
He won't actually wrestle in the ring again.
I mean. Never say never,
yeah.
but like
Hulk Hogan said that like 20 times,
right? But at the same, I think The Rock has more to do than Hulk Hogan.
He doesn't need to do it. Why would he even risk hurting his body?
Exactly.
It makes no sense.
He's in his late 40s, and he's got a rampaging movie career. No pun intended with Rampage.
I mean, he may be the biggest star in Hollywood.
He's
right
up
now.
there. I mean,
is there anyone bigger right now?
I think Tom Cruise is still.
I mean, he makes more
money for money, but
The Rock does way more films.
He does a lot more films, but that's not really how you measure that. But in terms, I mean, I would.
Everything he touches turns to gold. Everybody goes see.
Now it does.
Even Rampage, like people went to see Rampage because he was. It's crazy.
I mean, Vin Diesel wouldn't like me saying this, but he made Fast and the Furious. An international sensation.
Oh, for sure. People love The Rock.
So
it's crazy.
It's just going to continue and continue. He's got.
I lost camera 1.
He's got. A good 20 years left of being an action hero, and then he's just going to be so loved that he can just be in anything, and people will still love it.
Huh.
And he'll probably be like Stallone and Schwarzenegger. He'll just, Stallone's about to play Rambo again. Schwarzenegger's about to play the Terminator again. The Rock can do whatever he wants when he's that age too, I'm sure.
Yep. And he will.
Hobbs and Shaw will still ride in their 70s, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're right. Because then it'll be like quaint because they're geriatric.
By the way,
they're still kicking ass.
Do you know what the Japanese title of Hobbs and Shaw is?
No.
Wild Speed Super Combo.
What?
In Japan, Fast and the Furious is called Wild Speed. And so this one's called Wild Speed Super Combo, which I think is the coolest name of pretty much anything.
Well, there was a couple other things that they announced about the game. There's going to be themed DLC.
Okay.
Which
okay.
I guess that means maybe themed based on the show, or
themed based on like which show, or possibly themed on storyline or stable. Like you have like I don't know, like different groups of wrestlers or something. Like I'm not too up on kind of the current events of things.
They said it's gonna be a game as a service.
Yeah.
They're gonna run the DLC way longer than they have in the past.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, really, you need to pick what this game's gonna be, lock it down, and improve it as best you can as you move forward, and just stop starting over constantly.
Yeah,
because that's been a lot of their problem. Is just
I think that's probably the idea. They're gonna let Visual Concepts build the platform.
Yeah,
and then once
Visual Concepts has managed to keep NBA 2K on an upward trend across 2 or 3 generations.
It's not like Madden. Like, there are actually worthwhile new modes that launch in that franchise that people want to play.
Tell you what I would really like in a wrestling game, maybe not this one because like let them get established and do it, but I'd love to see, in the same way that maybe the campaign is dealing with sort of somebody's career, I'd love to play the careers of like major icons. Like I'd love to play like The Undertaker's career and like try to recreate the streak and stuff like that. Like that would be fun to do kind of
stuff that's been in Madden, where you could recreate classic moments or whatever.
And you can do that with Create a Wrestler, or like you set up your own match and stuff. But I'd love to see something that has the production value of a campaign.
Sure.
Do that.
Sure. So that's it for WWE 2K20. It's coming out October 22nd. Again, Ukes is gone. Visual Concepts in. We'll see if it makes a big difference.
I wonder how long. Have they said how long Visual Concepts has had for this?
No, they didn't. I'm hoping it's been like a few years, and this has been a plan that they've had in place for a long time, because giving them a year to build a brand new wrestling game, that's a recipe for disaster. So we'll see.
Best of luck to them.
But, I mean, they're already showing it off way earlier than they usually do, so my guess is that the promotional plan for this game is probably going to...
Yeah, I'm hoping this indicates confidence on their part.
Yeah, I hope so. So we'll see. Maybe it'll get me back in the squared circle after many, many moons. But I'm not holding my breath. All right, next we're going to talk about something we hate talking about, but it just keeps coming up over and over and over again. And that is violent video games being blamed for real-world violence. It is happening again. There were 2 mass shootings in the last 4 days. 2 of them happened on the same day.
Yeah, it was both on Saturday.
But that day was so bad, by the way, that another drive-by shooting in Chicago where like 7 people were killed wasn't even reported on because people were too concerned about what happened in El Paso and Dayton.
Or Toledo, depending on who you are.
Yeah. That's right. You wonder how the community of Dayton felt when the most important person in the country couldn't get their city right on a day where they lost a lot of lives. So anyway, this isn't just about Trump, though. Basically, as soon as they had their first press conference with authorities, they brought up representatives from Ohio, and they had both Republicans and Democrats. There was like 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat that came up to speak. All of them agreed at that point that what needed to be done was a combination of mental health issues and common sense gun laws. The next day, all that changed. And it went right back to the way it was before. The Democrats want gun control, and then the GOP started blaming it on video games. And look, like every time we discuss this, we always mention this, and we're going to mention it again. This is not typically exclusively a GOP problem. There have been Democrats in the past that have railed on video game violence. It's been a long time.
Oh, yeah, there was a time when the greatest enemy was Tipper Gore in this arena.
Al Gore's wife.
Yeah.
So this isn't something where it's always been one side, although over the last 10 years?
10 years. It's been pretty exclusively right-wing blame because they want a scapegoat. They don't, it fits the agenda. But historically, it has, blaming video games for this kind of thing has been something that both sides, in terms of the politicians, not in terms of the constituents, can agree on because, most politicians are old people who don't, at the time didn't know anything about video games and, was no skin off their back or their lobbyist owners to, unless you were lobbied by the ESA, which I guess doesn't happen that often. In which case, glad they have your phone number now.
Yeah.
Blaming video games did nothing bad to them, and it didn't, at the time, our generation and younger were not important voters, so it didn't matter if we wanted to vote for them or not. All they had to do was appeal to our parents, basically.
Yeah.
The boomer generation who outnumbered us, until the millennials became a voting age. Gen X, we don't have the numbers. We're caught between 2 giant generations that, and we're just drinking coffee.
Yeah.
But we were not kowtowed to in that regard because it was easier to just blame this and say that's the problem. So don't let your kid play Doom.
Right.
But it's funny to me that they're bringing this up because it is the worst possible angle to take if you're looking for a way to not blame guns, because all you have to do is pull up that Vox graph.
Andres, bring up the chart, my friend. So Vox...
you have it in here?
Yeah, it's in the TriCaster.
Yeah.
So yesterday, Vox published a chart that makes it very clear that the problem is not video games.
Yeah, the problem is, Japan, South Korea, the UK, Europe in general... They have violent video games. They have violent media, just like we do.
They're consumed just as much, if not more.
Yeah, they have mental illness just as much as we do. What's the variable?
Yeah. What's the difference on the right there? Why is it that the USA...
Can't imagine.
What could it be?
What's
the difference?
It must be freedom. Shane.
Yeah, that's it. Capitalism. It's capitalism that's causing all the mass shootings.
Yeah, none of this is helping. Really, it's like this is not a metric you want in front of people if you're arguing that it's not guns. It's not access to guns with no checks and balances.
Yeah.
Like, because what else is it?
That's the only difference in our country and all those other countries on that list.
Like size? Like I don't.
There's more room to shoot your guns.
Yeah.
in.
It doesn't make any sense.
But we're not going to spend a ton of time on this. I really just wanted to discuss it briefly to show that chart.
Yeah, I mean, that chart is like. I know people get a little nervous about, like they're going to ban things. Or gonna, first off, this is another thing why it's not smart to let the government get a foot in the door on the loot box thing.
You're right.
Because they can leverage that to do something about this, even though it's not going to do anything of use except make us miserable about it.
Yeah.
But also like there would be, I mean, if you really went after games for this, like first off, they're protected speech. That's already a decided thing. I mean, maybe you could overturn that because the court is packed, Supreme Court's now packed with a bunch of right-wing shit gnomes, but like, and they would just do the bidding of whatever they wanted to use as a scapegoat. That's possible. But generally this is decided law. Like,
you're not going to
video games are considered a freedom of expression and artistic expression, and you cannot curtail that by mandating content. You can't do that.
Look, the people who aren't willing to accept what the real problems are, which is access to guns and mental health that goes unchecked in our country, are never going to change their mind. The vast majority of Americans know what causes this problem, and they're willing to vote based upon it. So I think ultimately...
Well, I hope they remember that next year. So.
Well, I think they're going to remember it because these aren't going to stop, Matt.
True.
They're never going to stop. We've had 261 mass shootings in this year in America. It's insane. It's like more than one a day. Like we had 3 in one day. They had so many they couldn't even report on one of them. It's insane.
Well, I saw a report where they were talking about, I think the anchor was talking about the El Paso shooting and accidentally said Dayton like a couple times, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we were reporting on the other one, and I mixed it up with the other." I'm like, "That's how dense it is."
That's how you're right.
Yeah,
that's how prevalent they are. So, nice try, GOP, blaming video games again. Circulate that graph because it just ends the discussion. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to get in an argument with anybody about semantics.
You don't even have to believe that gun control is the solution. All you need to do is look at that graph and know that video games are not the problem. And for our purposes here on GameFace and Sifted, that's all we care about. So take that graphic. You can easily find it. Just Google Vox video game violence graph. It's all over the internet because it's so compelling. Google it's funny.
Share it on all your social media. Share it on Facebook where your family is, where maybe your parents see the stuff that you post, because those are the people that we need to reach on this, not other gamers.
Also, look up Reggie's tweets.
Yeah, his tweets were great.
Reggie posted some stuff last night that was solid with some good facts and statistics.
Yeah. But
the Reginator is in the house.
Props to Vox for breaking it down like that, because that is something anyone can understand. Everybody can look at that and be like, oh my gosh. Okay, I get it now.
That is about as clear as data gets.
And if you're going to look at that and you're not going to get it, you just don't want to get it.
Yep.
That's the bottom line.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to 2019.
Yep. It's a crazy world we live in. All right, let's move on to our last topic of today's episode. We're going to give our final impressions of Fire Emblem 3 Houses for Switch. We talked about it a good bit last week, like 40 minutes or whatever, because it is a gigantic game. We did do the play view and demo it a little bit, which kind of inflated its time. But both of us have continued to trudge, grind, work, whatever word you want to use, whatever verb you want to use, through this game. What's your hour count on your save right now, man?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh, you did? Mine's hit like 55 hours.
That's probably about... I mean, like I said, I leave it and go do other things sometimes, so like the clock still runs.
Yeah, it
so
does.
My save time,
unless you go to the home screen.
Yeah, my save. I don't care what the time on that says. Unless there's an achievement for beating it in a certain amount of time, I don't pay attention to that really. But I would say I probably played in the 40 to 50 hour range, somewhere in there.
That's where I am.
I got 2 characters in the early 40s, closing in on the level cap, which is 50.
I don't have any characters anywhere near that. How did you do that? Because
I play a lot of
every mission.
I play a lot of because like some of the battles in the battle days don't require activity points.
Yeah, I know.
So
I mean, I've actually played like 5 or 6 battles in a row at one point.
So I do that. I mean,
I finished them all, and my best character is
you can
only
do them over and over though.
Oh, and you've been doing that?
Sometimes, like if I want to level guys up or get them up to the next class.
I didn't do that. I just finished them all the first time, and my highest level character is like 34, I think.
Yeah, so I'm on I think I hit 34 in chapter 9.
I'm on chapter like 13.
Yeah, so
I don't know what you've been doing, man.
Like I said, I grind a bit to like get the characters up to the classes I want them to be. I'm focusing a lot of times on. I mean, it uses up weapons a lot, but I have a lot of money to buy new ones or like.
You might be the most frustrating player to ever watch stream a game.
I don't do that.
But I'm just saying, like, if someone were to watch you stream, like, they'd be like, "What are you doing? Why are you playing that mission again?"
Caspar keeps dying in 2 hits, and I'm gonna get that guy some heavy armor if it kills me. Like, and I did, and he's better now.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, his job is still to stand there and make sure that no melee guys get near my mages. But
he's
like,
your tank. He's just
no,
takes
he's
all
not.
the damage.
He's,
He's not.
He's interference.
Duday is my tank.
My tank is really Edelgard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, she's not. She can take hits, but her hits she attacks so strong.
Wait, Edelgard's on your team?
The girl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not on mine.
Well, she's the head of my house.
Oh, okay.
I picked Black Eagle.
Gotcha.
Like apparently most people did. It seems.
Is that true?
Seems like Black Eagle is the most popular. Golden.
I picked the least popular.
Golden Deer or whatever is the Blue Lion. Nobody wants to be Blue Lions and what's his butt with the spaghetti hair. But
Dimitri,
yeah. But and I've recruited a bunch of guys, because I eventually figured out that you don't need to raise the stats they say they want to like join you. You just need to give them gifts until they get a B ranking.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I got tons of gifts. I'll just give you owl feathers until you come join my class.
I haven't given like hardly any gifts, honestly.
I mean, I have a min-max sort of attitude towards Fire Emblem, and this is just how I play them. Like, so I'm like, okay, I want to get you up to this, and so okay, you give me this battle of the correct level, and like there's the quest battles, and there's the battles where like they're like side story battles with a green exclamation point, but then there's battles that don't cost activity points and are just like things you just do them as many times as you want.
Yeah.
And I did that sometimes just over and over to like get these guys up to where I want them to be.
I can't believe you do that because the big reason
sometimes
why
I do it just because I don't want to go and navigate menus for another 20 minutes.
I can see that.
I just want to play a turn-based strategy game for a while.
So looking at the lower third there, my opinion of this game has soured over time. The more I've played it, the less I've enjoyed it. I hit an apex at probably the 25 to 30 hour mark, and then since then, it's just really turned into a grind.
I still enjoy it a lot.
I think another problem too is there's no challenge to the game at all.
It is pretty easy for a Fire Emblem.
It's so easy. Like I'm way farther than you right now.
Like
I'm playing like the end stages of the game and one-shotting the big boss of the game. And I'm only level 34. Dude, you are just gonna waltz.
Edelgard's been one-shotting almost everything for.
They can't even attack
2 chapters.
Like my lead character, who I play as, and he is my most powerful character, not my house leader. When I go into a battle, even with like the toughest bosses in the game, I intentionally send him into harm's way. I just send him way out ahead of everyone else and just plant him. And what happens is all the enemies attack him, and he counter kills all of them.
Yeah.
They attack, they do no damage, his retaliation one-shots them.
Yeah, I mean, my main character's like that too, but like I try not to like lean on that so much because I like to get everybody up. So my kind of rule is like every battle, everybody has to go up a level. And
I try.
Sometimes there's not enough enemies for that, but usually there are if I play my cards right and get everybody a kill and stuff. So like it's a pretty but it's like my character, like my 2 lead characters, my main character and my house leader, right around 40, early 40s. Everybody else is like early 30s, and like I think I got like the one archer is like late 20s because the archers don't get a lot to do. Because
most of my other party members are like mid 20s, and I'm at the end of the game. It's crazy
I mean,
how much you've leveled them up.
I still like it, and I'll probably go back through and do a New Game Plus
Really?
at some point. You know.
Wow. I won't play this again.
I'll definitely play it again.
It just started to wear me down after a while. There's just nothing new. The pattern gets really annoying after a while.
Well, I will say
the monthly pattern of you teach school for 2 days. You have X number of days where you can go and explore. Then you have to spend 2 days on playing the battles. And then at the end of the month, you play the mission. Like, the only thing that's unique of every month is the one mission. Mm-hmm. And you end up spending several hours on each month. And so the last couple chapters, I've just stopped doing everything else. I don't teach anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't take choir lessons.
Well, have you gotten to
I don't plant food. I don't fish. I literally just skip the whole calendar and just go to the main mission.
So are you not at part 2 yet?
What do you mean by part 2?
Well, you know how when they introduce the chapters, the very calm audiobooks man says
I skip through those.
Says part 1, white clouds.
Yeah, I skip through that stuff.
Okay, well, so you haven't hit the time skip.
Yes, I have.
And has it gotten significantly worse for you? Because that's the part where all the reviews were like, "Oh, it's not as good after that."
I mean, I had already kind of had it on autopilot before then. I mean, I'll say this, like, that's when the plot cracks open and it's not just repetitive anymore.
I mean, it's not like it doesn't telegraph what's happening ahead of time.
So at first, it seems like it's way different. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, this just cracked open, and now it's just turning into, like, an open world strategy. And then the calendar shows up again. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to ruin anything for you or for anyone else. At first, it seems like a bigger deal than it ultimately becomes.
I mean, I figured because you can't. Moment. Well, because the way everything levels up, those systems work, you can't change it fundamentally without basically stopping progress for the characters.
I just feel like they needed way more to do. As far as, like, the stuff that's in the hub world. Like, there needs to be more activities. The activities need to become more challenging as time goes on. It's just the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, you're just filling bars.
Yeah. And I got sick of it after a while. I'm way too far to turn back now. I'm gonna finish the game. But the last, like, 15, 20 hours to me have not been particularly enjoyable. Certainly not as enjoyable as the first 25 hours were.
I'm still enjoying it a lot. I mean, to be fair, I have turned the music off.
Yeah, because there's only like 2 songs.
There's not too many songs, and the song that plays when you're running around the monastery and the song that plays during battle, they were getting stuck in my head to the point that I'd wake up and hum them in the shower without realizing it.
I was walking around my house whistling them. Yeah. And Michelle's like, what are you whistling?
It was getting. I wasn't even aware I was doing it. And suddenly I'm like, where's this? Oh, fuck.
When you spend that much time, it just ebbs into your subconscious and just takes over.
I turn the music off.
Yeah,
and listen to like other like podcasts and stuff while I play.
Yep,
because you don't really need the sound.
You really don't. Like, I skip through most of the, like any of those cutscenes where you're supposed to be building, like, rapport between
the support stuff.
I just skip through all those.
Yeah, I don't
care about
I can read faster than I can talk, and I just go through them at this point. Because, look, it takes long enough as it is.
Yeah. So...
But it's fine. I like the characters. I like my house. I like kind of the progress of things. I like... it's just the Fire Emblem thing. You level up the class, you get to the next class, and, like, you're like, oh, they're really good now. And, like, that's, I enjoy it.
I really enjoyed it for the first, like, 25 or 30 hours. But after it just got to the point where, and especially once it became easy and every mission was just a means to an end, where I just knew I was going to just trash every enemy I came up against. Like, the first time I one-shotted a boss that they had been building up for, like, 20-some hours, I was like, wait a minute. This was, like, the bad guy from the first act of the game, and I literally... killed him with one shot, and not one shot with, like, one of my crazy, like, weapons, like, one shot with an iron sword. And then that was, like, the paradigm shift. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then as my other characters started getting built up, it got to the point where everybody can one-shot enemies, and I had to start keeping crappy weapons on them so I could still... decide who got to deliver the last hit. So they got the experience.
I do still keep iron weapons around just for that.
So you have a weapon that doesn't one-shot the enemy. So it leaves a little bit left so someone else can come in and just finish them off. Like, I don't know. Once I got to that point, I'm like, this game's kind of broken, I thought. The balancing's way off. It got really repetitive for me. The story's not great. Like, if it were more interesting, it would be enough to keep my interest, but it moves really slow. And then, like, they'll talk about things in the story that they don't make them seem very significant, and then you realize, oh my god, this is like a turning point for the whole game, and then vice versa. Stuff that they seem to make a big deal out of, you find out isn't really that big of a deal.
It sounds like Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I guess. It's still worth $60. I got 30 hours out of this that I absolutely adored, and I've enjoyed the rest of it, but if you would buy this only because you think you're getting like 60 or 70 hours of incredible game out of it, then maybe you might want to hedge your bets a little bit, but it's still worth the $60.
Yeah, I mean, I have no qualms about saying it's worth the $60. It's Fire Emblem. Like, it's exactly what I was hoping it would be. If you're gonna mash up Persona, Harry Potter, and Fire Emblem, like, that's pretty much what you get.
Yeah.
So I'm still liking it. I don't mind being all that overpowered because I feel like I've kind of earned the overpoweredness.
I felt that at first. It feels rewarding. You're like, oh, I'm a badass now. But then after a while, you're like, man, this is a joke.
Yeah, but I'm just, there's always going to be one or two enemy. I still every once in a while run into an enemy. It's like, oh, this guy isn't actually just rolling over.
A couple guys, if they have like really powerful magic spells,
the magic guys can be dangerous.
I just go after them first.
Sometimes the beast guy, the big monsters, can be a problem.
I just wipe them out, man.
Well, it depends where they are.
They make you keep fighting them, though, because they have several health bars. And you can only take out one health bar per attack. So now you just need 3 people to attack it.
I just use the thing where you use the gambits to blow their shields up and get their items. Like, I like doing that. I don't even use it.
I think I've used gambits like maybe 10 times the whole game.
I rarely use them unless I am up against one of those beasts to break their shields and get the rare items. And then sometimes I'll use them if there's just a character I know I don't want you to attack next turn, and I use the one that delays them. I don't use that much anymore. I use that more early on when I was like there were situations where I couldn't take hits from somebody. That's not as common anymore unless I swear to God, my mages can take more hits than that damn axe kid. Like I don't know what his problem is. And at one point he comes and he asks me to be a brawler, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to let you be a hand-to-hand combatant. You can't take a punch, man. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, look, the main bad guy that they build up through the whole game, I just fought that enemy, and it doesn't end the game. And literally,
it wouldn't be Fire Emblem without like 3 false endings.
Literally, he had like 35 hit points.
Huh. I always wonder if sometimes like Fire Emblem gets kind of. I mean, first off, I think we're both playing on normal.
Yeah.
Sounds like maybe hardcore would have been or harder.
That actually, I would recommend that. I would recommend playing this on a harder difficulty.
And I always wonder if like there's some kind of balance problem with Fire Emblem, where like the fact that your level ups are random in stat growth.
Yeah.
Not totally random, because like being certain classes will influence what stats are most likely.
Direction.
But you don't have full control, and sometimes like it feels like a level up's wasted if you only get like 1 or 2 stat point. I mean, they even say like that they're disappointed in their progress when that happens, and so like you can't necessarily know how powerful someone's going to be when they get to whatever boss. But I do feel like this game somewhat underestimates you, especially with the tools they give you to grind with, and just simply the power of some of the classes you can get to, even in the intermediate realm.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes, and like past the time skip for me. I'm not there yet. I think I'm like 1 more chapter, and I should be there.
It benefits from there being nothing else.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Switch owner, though. There is actually stuff to play on Switch, but not elsewhere.
Not like this, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unique. And it scratches the Fire Emblem itch, and there's not really anything else like it. Unless you want to go back and play Fates, but I think this is a better game than Fates.
It is. Do you think it's the best Fire Emblem game ever? I've seen that said a lot over the last week.
I think it might be. I do have some fondness for the GameCube one.
Me too.
But I think this is a more playable game.
It's the most polished and refined Fire Emblem ever.
Yeah.
It's definitely the best console Fire Emblem ever.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I think I've liked the stories better in some handheld ones.
Yeah, I think Awakening might have been a more interesting story overall.
Yeah.
This one's a little...
And I thought the handheld ones are better balanced as well than this one is.
Yeah, they can be. It depends on which one you're talking about. Like the older ones were a little too much on the hard side.
Right. Yeah.
This one's maybe a little too easy, but we'll see. That's again why I'm interested in New Game Plus, to like put it on a higher difficulty and see what happens. and kind of
You know what? Maybe I will give it a spin.
Really
just
maxing
to
some of
see.
these characters out and seeing what they can do at that level.
Because this game is a great travel companion. This is one of those
Yeah.
games that you could put in your Switch and literally just carry it around for like the next 2.5 years.
Yeah,
you
I-
only played it while you were on
Well,
the
I
go.
actually I bought it digitally specifically because of that, because I
Yeah.
figured like this is something I'm going to want to be able to pull up whenever or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So like, yeah, like if I am pretty confident I'm going to be playing a game for a long time on and off, like I'll get it, because I tend to get Switch games physically because
I get all my games physically if I can.
I don't, just because I don't care, and it's easier to not have to switch discs all the time. But I do tend to get the Nintendo stuff physically because Nintendo stuff holds its value.
And those cards are small. They don't take up a ton
Yeah,
of space.
it's like I don't need a whole shelf for that.
Yeah.
But like, and if I want to take them somewhere, you just stick the cards in the little, holder, little pockets on the Switch case, and
Yeah.
because I do sometimes take it up north with me, where I have another dock at my mom's house, and I just play it there because I don't play a handheld.
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
Just,
Take it and plug it in.
But take these tiny little chips with you, and it's easier than taking a bunch of Blu-rays.
You just put them in your coin pocket in your jeans.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
That's where I put them.
I feel like those could fall out, and you'd never know.
Oh, no. Nothing's coming out of there. The worst problem you have is lint gets caught on the carts. I just blow them off, and off I go.
Just don't lick them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Don't lick the carts, as Pactor learned. But look, both of us still recommend this game for purchase. $60, 30 to 40 hours of amazing entertainment. To me, that's worth every penny. I would say if you're hoping to get 80 hours, something like that out of it, and hoping that it stays at that same level of quality all the way through, I think you should maybe think twice about it. But especially right now, in August, it's hard to find
There's
other
not much
games.
else to play, really.
Yeah, it's hard to find other games that we would recommend more for buying. So there you go. Fire Emblem 3 Houses for Switch. You think we'll be talking about it again at the end of the year in our Game of the Year discussions? I mean, certainly
Might.
for best strategy game, although Planetfall comes out today.
Planetfall?
Yeah.
I don't think I know what that is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like the big 4X game that's coming.
I'm not a 4X fan.
Oh,
really.
okay. That comes out today, though, and that's been getting like really good reviews. So it'll have to tangle with that game, I think, at the end of the year. But when I start thinking about like Game of the Year, even like Switch Game of the Year, I think it might be tough.
I don't know. It probably has a pretty good shot at Switch Game of the Year for me. I mean, depending on Pokemon.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, Fire Emblem's up there with my favorite Nintendo. Fire Emblem and Metroid are kind of top of the heap there.
Are those your favorite Nintendo?
I'd say
franchises?
Fire Emblem, Metroid, and Zelda are my three favorites. Not except for the Zelda, not particularly mainstream, really, but
Yeah.
and like really, I don't like that many Zelda games when you get down to it. It's more of a concept. I mean, I love Ocarina, I love Link to the Past.
Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess is okay.
It did have Waggle though. I know you hate that.
Yeah, well, Twilight Princess. My main thing was just like I felt very washed out and oppressive.
Yeah, visually. Yeah.
I hated Skyward Sword. I physically despise the DS games, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit. Phantom Hourglass, I think, is the worst Zelda game ever made.
I didn't finish it.
I hated.
It may be the only Zelda game I didn't
having
finish.
to redo that stupid Temple of the Ocean King every time he came back. I'd have to hit whoever came up with that, like with a bat. I love Link Between Worlds. That was great, and I like Breath of the Wild, but like Zelda games like are very hit or miss for me. Whereas like Fire Emblem, I like every Metroid game except Other M.
They don't change Fire Emblem very drastically, though.
No, and Fire Emblem Fire Emblem's Fire Emblem.
It is, yeah. You know what you're getting. It's a known
Yeah.
commodity.
I mean,
for sure.
I do prefer like now that they don't have me trying to marry off my adult characters to the 10-year-old, 1,000-year-old dragon girl, because that's creepy as hell. Because like trying to get all your characters to like breed properly and like give you the right class of creature, and then like the kid like goes through a time loop and comes back as an adult so they can fight alongside you. Bizarre. Like there's some bizarre stuff. They got rid of a lot of that in this one, and I think it's better that they.
I still haven't
downplay
had
the
any
romance.
romance options.
There are no romance options
Okay.
except for your main character.
Okay.
Your main character is the only one that can get to S class, S rank with anyone for a relationship.
Okay. But they don't like seal the deal or anything.
I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But,
I haven't seen anything like that. I mean, obviously, I've been building my rapport with all my party members, but there's been no romantic stuff at all.
Well, at some point, you can take your character's relationship to the S class or something and pick a romantic interest, I think. But the previous games, you had all the different characters marrying off each other and everything. Yeah, and that's gone in this one, which I think is fine. Like, I don't
miss it really.
It's not a thing.
I just kept waiting for it to appear, and it just never did.
No, it's not there, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Although there's a couple of the support conversations do feel like they were building to that.
Oh yeah, I've had lots of conversations where there's innuendo and stuff like that, and like when you have the private tea party with some of them, it seems like things are getting a little steamy, but then nothing ever happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean between them, like not just your character and them, but like between the individual characters.
Oh yeah, there's a couple instances where NPCs were like, "I'd like to spend more time with you away from the fighting."
Yeah, and then it just doesn't. It is a little weird. Like they have at least two characters that are supposed to be like super flirt, like ladies men or like men's women kind of thing. Like, but like nothing ever happens.
Nope. But, yeah. So. No making babies in Fire Emblem 3 Houses.
I mean, they're all like 20. Like they're too. Although in medieval times they wouldn't have been too young, but
right.
They got plans.
They've been geriatric in medieval.
They got stuff to do.
All right, that's it for Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Like I said, maybe we'll get back to that Game of the Year discussions at the end of the year, but I don't know. For me, that might be tough. For Matt, maybe not so much. But it's a great game. I just feel like it loses steam eventually, unfortunately. So it's time for our trailer of the week. For those of you who know GameFace, that also means it's time to get your questions into the chat. And I just saw out of the corner of my eye, W. Matthew fire off his question. He knows what he's doing. Anyway, this is your chance to get questions into the chat that we'll answer right after the trailer of the week. The trailer of the week is actually for what really is probably the biggest story in games this week, which is Fortnite just launched Season X. They're not calling it 10, they're calling it Season X. And as much as we don't care about Fortnite, if you really think about it, it's probably the biggest story in games this week, other than the Fortnite esports tournament where dude won $3 million. But Fortnite Season X is here, and here's the launch trailer. Let's roll it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Feeling the urge to get away from it all?
I think we care the least
or for
about
months at a time?
Fortnite
Immerse
of any podcast in the world.
Maybe.
We just really don't care.
I think Joe Rogan might care less.
Yeah, that's true. There is one person. Thanks to everybody who subscribed via Twitch Prime during the stream. I see the one Geo here at the end. I saw a couple people at the top of the show subscribing via Twitch Prime, but unfortunately the chat from the beginning part of the show is gone on my iPad, so I can't call you guys out by name, but thank you guys very much. Let's get to some questions here. Shelburne with a note. GDPR violation maximum fine is $20 million. What does that mean?
For the privacy breach.
Oh, so that's the most that they could ever... That's nothing.
Per violation.
Oh, per violation.
Like, that would be per person.
Oh, gosh. Wow. That could break a company, that's for sure.
Could.
Absolutely. Let's get to the bottom here for some questions. We'll take W. Matthew first, as always. Given From Software's popularity since the Souls games, what was your first exposure to From? For me, it was Lost Kingdoms, a pretty good action card-based RPG.
Yeah, I remember Lost Kingdoms.
Yeah, that was a GameCube game, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
My first From Software game, I think, would have been the first Armored Core.
Yeah, me too.
On PS1.
Yeah, I mean, that was its first kind of hit in the West.
Yeah.
And I've used the word hit very loosely when I say that.
I mean, they made like 20 of them, so it found an audience.
It certainly did.
And I have all. I mean,
I think most people probably would give that answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most people like us. I mean,
I'm
sure there's a lot of people who have never even touched an Armored Core game.
Yeah. Because how long has it been since there's been a new one?
Early 360, I think.
Was it Armored Core?
Yeah, it's Armored Core 5.
Oh.
And I think one more.
Did From do that other mech battle game?
They did not do Chrome Hounds, no. I don't think so.
Okay. That was Sega that published that, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. It's weird the stuff that you do and don't remember after all these years and all these games. The stuff that you actually retain and what you don't. Justin Horman, question from someone who had to leave chat early. User Roger Strom, it looks like. Game streaming equals wife minus acceptable solved. I don't get this question at all. Game streaming equals wife minus acceptable solved? No more boxes and cables cluttering around the TVs. I think this is an overlooked big deal. Now what's your take on it? I guess he's saying game streaming. Oh, I get it now.
He means if the streaming games means like
your wife will be happy.
Be happy because you don't have cables everywhere.
Happy wife, happy life. I will still have cables because I rent, so I cannot run like my speaker wires through the walls or the ceiling. So my surround sound speaker wire has to go on the ground from my TV, under the coffee table, under the couch, and then back to the speakers behind me. And I have to basically lay a carpet down on top of carpet to cover up those wires. I could get wireless, but they'll sound like crap. Like I have really good satellite speakers. So I'm always going to have cables, but he is right. Like especially when you start talking about having your TV mounted on a wall and not wanting to have like an entertainment center underneath with a bunch of consoles and other gear in it. Like a lot of houses are kind of cutting back on all that kind of clutter. So, and my wife hates that we have that carpet in our living room and I've got the wires running. She just mentioned it the other day, actually. She despises it. So,
well, Stadia is not going to get rid of those.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Streaming won't change that for me at all.
No, I don't think it's a factor to any great degree. Like it's, who cares? Like I'm pretty sure Stadia is targeted directly at China, because China no one's really made any inroads in console gaming in China because there's like estimated 200 million people that are a potential audience there. And they can't touch them because bootlegging and piracy is so bad, and you can't import the hardware and the hardware. So in this case, you got good internet infrastructure, and you got a simple subscription service, which is already a thing in China pretty regularly, and you've got all the major games. You're selling them for full price, but you're selling them over this streaming service, so you don't have to worry about anybody. There's no hardware, there's no disc, there's no nothing. You can't pirate anything. It's all it's all server side, so they've got control over that.
It's made for China.
It is absolutely targeted. That's the whole point, I think, of Stadia is trying to break into the Chinese market, and anything they get in North America and Europe is
just gravy.
Just bonus points.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
That's my theory.
I think that's a good theory.
That's the only way it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And they could make a ton of money in China.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a completely untapped console market.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Okay.
You don't even need to sell them a controller. You can use any controller they already have. Like it's the perfect Trojan horse basically to get into that market.
Yep. Justin, thank you for submitting that question on behalf of someone else. That was very awesome of you. J. Reed, Vic 7, Rainbow Six Siege, No Man's Sky, and Sea of Thieves all had uniqueness as an advantage. Is part of the uphill climb for Anthem with its new Cataclysm content going to be there being two high quality similar games in Warframe and Destiny 2 that are free? I'm not sure I completely understand that question yet.
I think the uphill climb for Anthem is that nobody cares.
Yeah,
they blew it.
It's lost all of its mind share at this point.
I mean, they put the 1.30 update was today, and like there's huge changes, tons of additions, but like, does anyone care?
And the sad truth is,
I'll probably look at it, but like I think it's too little, too late.
It is. The sad truth is that game really had a great window.
Yeah.
It could, if it were actually really good, it could have done huge. Because think about it, nothing really all that compelling has come out since.
Yeah, it had a lot of time to itself in that arena. And it just wasn't able to capitalize.
Blew it. EA blew it. I don't think there's any saving Anthem at this point. I think whatever they have planned, they'll finish and they'll get out.
Yeah, I've said from the beginning usually these games have like a 1-year plan for post-launch, and I figure they'll support it to the end of that, and EA will pull the plug.
Yeah,
and that'll be that.
That's my guess too.
Start looking for the death of Anthem sometime next February.
Yep, that's about right. That's what I would say too. It's sad. It had so much
possibility.
But...
I like playing it. I enjoy it. I think there was a lot to it, and but it just wasn't there.
It's hard to recover when you come out of the gate week. I mean, just look at Fallout 76. Bethesda's not giving up on that, but
Bethesda is not EA.
Only the hardest of the hardcore are playing it still. It does have a dedicated audience somehow, but it's small.
I think Anthem could have something similar, but it's not good enough for EA.
Yeah.
Like, Bethesda's not the same kind of company.
It's true. Yep. Okay, here's a real question from Justin Horman. Mr. Kyle, as a Criterion Collection collector, how interested are you in the upcoming Spine number 1000, which will be a $225 8-disc 5-film Godzilla box set? 15 film box set.
Yeah.
What is your favorite movie to get a Criterion Collection release, and what is the Criterion Collection disc you've watched the most?
There is no limit to my interest in that box set. I'm a huge Godzilla fan, and I can't believe they actually jumped through all the licensing hoops required to get the entire Showa series in one box. I never thought that would happen. Part of the difficulty with Godzilla movies on DVD and Blu-ray has been that because so many of the different movies were distributed by different companies here, because it was not one single distributor all the time bringing those movies out in America, both in theaters and on home video and on broadcast. Tracking down everyone and appeasing everyone who had the various rights to everything was a nightmare. And so you got all these different releases from different companies, from different weird, and they were Destroy All Monsters very famously was, among Godzilla fans, was out on DVD for like a month, and then like that was it. And then like for years, Destroy All Monsters on DVD was like $200 on the secondary because you couldn't get it for it. And then they re-released it and it was better, and it's on Blu-ray now. But getting all these in one nice, coherent, like well-produced box set in one place is fantastic. So yes, I will be buying that sight unseen. I love that the 1000th release of a series, and speaking as someone who has hundreds of them, is as film snobby as the Criterion Collection. It's going to be a Godzilla box set. Like, that's awesome.
That is a bit of a juxtaposition there.
Because there's a nice little moment of like, because it's like Criterion's like, oh my God, Armageddon has a Criterion release. Yeah, it was part of the contract. Sorry, it's not like, I don't like Armageddon either, but sorry, it's not highfalutin enough for you. Is my favorite Criterion release or whatever? God, I don't know if I could narrow that down.
How many are there?
Well, there's about to be 1,000. Godzilla's Spine number
Oh,
1,000.
that's what that means. Okay.
Yeah, there's a different. They number each one. So like it's not always the same. So like it's like there's box sets where the box is a number, and then each disc in the box is another number. So like that box set covers like a bunch of different numbers.
Okay.
This is the box set for Godzilla is number 1,000.
And that's it. It doesn't have multiple numbers inside it.
I don't know. It might be like 1,001 to 1,015. I don't know if they still do that because I haven't really kept up with the collect. Because for a while there they got a little weird. They got a little I collected pretty regularly up. I collected everything up through about 400. And then after that, they got a little, I felt like you covered sort of the basics of like film history with most of that stuff. You got most of the Kurosawa, honestly, the Kurosawa stuff is probably what I've watched the most. It doesn't really get better than Throne of Blood and Ran. I love those movies a lot. And The Killer. I do watch The Killer pretty often, John Woo, to remember when John Woo was really good.
Yeah. Talk about a career that's just fell off a cliff.
But I kind of got out of it for a while because for a while it felt like Criterion was sort of like we're going to release the most obscure things you've never heard of. And I'm like, well, for $40 a disc, I'm going to need to have heard of it. I'm not just taking a shot at that. But I did subscribe to the Criterion channel now, and like that's really good.
How much is that a month?
I can't remember. I think it's like I paid for a whole year. And I think it was like $100 for the year.
Steep.
Well, if you watch enough black and white shit,
they're
not. I guess the thing is like, you don't realize until you go looking for them that like Netflix and the mainstream streaming services are terrible for classic films, for anything that isn't a current release or an original production. So if you want to see like classic films like done up the right way, you got to subscribe to Criterion. I bought an Amazon Fire just for that because I didn't have it on my TV. My TV didn't have a.
Did you just buy a Fire Stick or did you
Fire
buy
stick?
Yeah.
It's just like old, the thing I stick it in the
USB port.
I stick it in the same USB hub that I plug my or the same thing I plug into my Switch to get it to the switcher up to get to the entertainment
switcher,
system, and that's it. It's very easy. Yeah, it's just an HDMI thing.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'm very excited. I did not expect that to ever happen. Like the Godzilla movies would be collected like that in a nice box set with all the original art and all this stuff. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's great. It's a pop art masterpiece what they're putting out.
Okay, our next question is from maybe the best username on all of Twitch. The Boomafoo with Crack Bros. Will Breath of the Wild 2 make Breath of the Wild obsolete?
I hope so.
I hope it does.
Yeah.
I really hope it does. Because Breath of the Wild, to me, could, with just a few tweaks, could have been the game that everybody else said that it was.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't need a lot of changes or evolution to really make it as good as the review score suggests that it is. So yes, I hope absolutely that it does.
Yeah. To me, Breath of the Wild is pretty much like a tech demo.
Yeah,
For
we figured it out, people.
Hey, look, it's an open world overworld that feels like Zelda.
Yeah.
Great, now put a Zelda game in it.
Yeah, now make it fun.
So you got to add a story that has more memorable moments than just the time Zelda crawled around and Link stared at her ass for half a minute. And you need to add, dungeons.
Yeah.
Like, make it a Zelda game.
I think that's a given at this point.
Yeah, I also expect, I think it's going to be co-op.
Yeah, probably so. One can play as Zelda, one can play as Link. Probably so.
I think it's going to, and I think Zelda and Link are going to play differently.
I also think that once everyone plays Breath of the Wild 2, they're going to see why myself and others didn't think the first Breath of the Wild was the game of forever, because they're going to see how clearly it could have been improved.
I find it very hard to go back to Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I know. I have found it hard to go back to it when I got to like the 50-hour mark. Yeah. I was like, I'm over this. I'm tired of climbing these rocks.
I played something like 80 hours, and I really enjoyed it. But when I went back to play the DLC, when the DLC was out, I just couldn't get back into it.
It's so different from everything else. You have to relearn like the control scheme all over again.
I tried again like a couple months ago, and I just bounced right off it.
Yeah.
Like the instant it starts raining when I'm trying to climb something, I'm like, you know what? Go fuck yourself. How about who in the hell thought this was fun?
There's all kinds of little stuff like that in that game.
Because what happens?
Triggers.
There's no like skill-based thing to get around the rain. You just have to stand there and stare at the wall you want to climb up until the rain stops.
Yep.
What the hell? It's very un-Nintendo, frankly.
Yeah. I think it's like you said, though. They're like, they got it to where it worked.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, there you go.
I mean, in terms of like, hey, do you think you could make an open world that feels like Zelda? They nailed it.
Yeah.
They did, but they forgot to make the rest of the game.
Yeah, the actual game. Vincent, does the quality of Fire Emblem Three Houses make you more interested in Koei Tecmo's other strategy games? Should we expect impressions of Romance of the Three Kingdoms 14 next year?
Hell no.
That was a funny question, Vincent. Good job, bro. No. Because one thing I will say is that, like...
I mean, if you want to reinvent Romance of the Three Kingdoms as a school Harry Potter setting, and I have to, like, teach them all how to be warriors, I mean, that would actually be kind of funny.
One thing I will say about Three Houses is it has personality, and it's like a warm game. Like, I don't know what that really means, but to me it means something. It's like, those Koei Tecmo games are so rigid, and they're based...
I mean, at the very least, you'd have to make it possible for me to have lunch a lot more often in Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, Vincent, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective. The One Geo, since you subscribe via Twitch Prime, we are absolutely going to answer your question. What game do you wish you were a pro at?
Street Fighter.
Oh, come on, you know it's Smash.
No.
Wish I were a pro at. Man.
I mean, I could be.
That's a hard one.
There was a like a Hard Times.net, the parody like news site, sort of like The Onion, but they did a parody article which was just like, local man too good to play fighting games with friends but not good enough to play competitively. Yeah. And like that's pretty much where I could be competitive if I wanted to like put more time into it and drive down to like Santa Ana to play in Wednesday night fights every Wednesday, but I that's too far.
I'm probably taking this a little deeper than I should, but when I think about like what game would I want to be a pro at, I think about the whole bit of being a pro. The travel. Like, where do you have to go for most of the tournaments? Are they most of them domestic? Or most of them overseas? That all plays into it for me.
See, when I think of it, I just think of like being good enough to walk into a major tournament and not get knocked out in pools.
Right,
basically,
right.
You know, like that would be what my definition of that. I don't think I would necessarily be going to like CEO in Florida and stuff.
Yeah.
That's
the only game I even have a vague
especially now it's in
chance.
Daytona Beach. Fuck that.
Yeah, the only game I even have a vague chance is probably Call of Duty, and I really don't have a vague chance. I mean, my KD in Black Ops 4 is probably like a 1.35, 1.4.
I mean, I'd love to see like a genie spell or something where you were that good, and it was just like this old dude with all these children like trying to
just wrecking shop.
What is he doing? And he
that would be great.
It's just wrecking 20-year-olds like left and right, and you're like, everybody have you can't have a beer.
Yeah. But then I think about, okay, you also have to play one game for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I think with that considered, it would probably be League of Legends, because I never get tired of that game because I'm always getting better at it. So if I had to pick, most of League's tournaments are overseas.
That's true. You'd spend a lot of time in Korea. Huh?
Yeah. I guess I would probably go with Call of Duty. It's close, though. Almost all of Call of Duty's tournaments are domestic, so you wouldn't have to fly very far. And,
Shocker.
And look, if I hadn't traveled a lot already, I would like the idea of going overseas to play in tournaments, and I'm sure a lot of the real esports athletes would prefer League because of that reason, but because I've already traveled a lot of places and travel doesn't hold a big allure for me anymore, it would probably be Call of Duty. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to travel around and do that life.
I don't want to do it at all.
Not again.
At all. Like, I have no interest. Like, if someone's like, hey, we'll make you an esports athlete today and we'll pay you $10,000 a month, but you're going to travel all month, I wouldn't take the job.
Probably not. I mean, especially like the idea of going like somewhere like that far, going to South Korea and then having to play in something that high pressure, jet lagged.
Oh, yeah. Imagine that. I didn't even think about that, actually. I wonder how early those guys, because some of these teams are just scraping by.
Although, I mean,
I doubt they're bringing them in a week before a tournament somewhere.
I mean, to be fair, it's easier going there.
It is.
It's harder. It's harder going east.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, the guys, the real heroes are the guys who come from Japan and Korea to play at Evo. Because flying, Japan to Vegas, that jet lag is awful.
Yeah,
it
is.
You just coming back from Asia, like usually would
coming back
it takes
from
a week
Asia
for
to
me to get back to
California
normal.
is awful because you go over the international date line and you literally relive like 3 or 4 hours of your life again. The first time that happened to me, I was like, so if I just keep flying in that direction, will I never get old?
No.
That's not how it works, Shane.
Not unless you hit the speed of light.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, you go back in time when you fly from Japan into LA. It's like you'll leave Japan at like 9 a.m. on Monday morning, and when you land, it's like 7:30 a.m. Monday morning in Los Angeles. It's crazy. The first time you do it, it takes a while to get over it. Well, actually, it never gets easier coming back.
No, well, especially when back in the day when we have to come back, it was like, okay, you landed, and now you got to make a show. Out of all the stuff we brought back, and
G4 was cheap, so we didn't have any time to get over jet lag. We were out in the streets the next day shooting generally.
Oh yeah, and there was like I remember it came back from one of them. I think it was 2007. I got really sick in Japan.
I remember that actually.
Something with a fever and all this. It was crazy. And we came back, and one of our other producers gave me one of his Ambien so I could, because I didn't want to live through a 13-hour flight with all that congestion and all that. So I slept through that. But when we landed, my voice was gone.
Really?
I could barely talk.
Just during that flight, it just was gone.
Yeah, I couldn't go home. We had to go back to the office and like organize everything and decide. And before I could leave and rest, hand the tapes in, figure out where everything was and what was. Yeah. And at a certain, we were trying to like figure out like what this was and this was here, and I'm like, this is that, because I knew what all the B-roll was, because that was kind of like it always ended up being what my thing was do we have footage of all the different games, because I knew all the games off by looking at them. And this, and at some point, like I was trying to get sound out, and at some point I corrected Adam on something, and Adam's just like, well, I didn't know. I'm like, do not read into my tone of voice right now. I am literally just trying to make intelligible words come out of my mouth.
However it comes out is the best it could come out.
Yeah, assume it's very polite. Whatever I'm trying to say. So yeah, that was that. that stuff tended to be a nightmare. I can't imagine like going through that and then having to play a fighting game tournament against the best people in the world like that. I mean, that's amazing that they pulled that off.
Let's see. Emperor Dread. While watching EVO, I was wondering how awesome it would be to have a moment of glory on stage. Do you two have any favorite pop-offs, in quotes, you'd like to see or perform yourselves?
Well, my favorite, I'm a big fan of whenever Gutex would throw his fighting stick off. That was always fun. But my favorite of all time was either I can't remember which it was. It was either NorCal or SoCal Regionals in I think 2009, and Taquito was playing. And he, this clip is famous, but I was sitting with Seth Killian on the stage, next to the stage, because I was there for G4, and so like, I got nice treatment.
Yep.
They all liked me there because I put them on television.
Yep,
and
that'll do it.
So I was sitting with Seth like off the side of the stage, and the way it was set up was that the players were on like one side of the stage playing, and then there was a projector that was projecting the game on the kind of the back wall of the stage for everyone in the audience to see. And Taquito was playing Akuma, and he won with some crazy, like he just like bonsai charged the Raging Demon, like just shouldn't have worked, but it did. Like he got and like he knew, because the Raging Demon takes a while. He knew he'd won. The life was coming off. So he gets up. He puts the stick down, gets up, runs to the center of the stage, and stands with his back to the projector. So when Akuma does the thing where the symbol appears on his back, the symbol appeared on Taquito's back from the projector, and it was the coolest damn thing I'd ever seen. Like the entire auditorium just was on their feet.
Yeah,
it's like, wow,
that's great. Yeah.
And then I think Seth said something like we all sat down, and Seth was just like, I feel so bad for the other guy, because Seth is a good man, and he thinks of that. He thinks of that kind of thing.
When you do something like that, you don't feel bad for the other guy, because it wasn't to rub it in their face. It was just
he thought he knew he did it. He knew he could do it. He knew he could get there in time, and it was going to be awesome. And he did it. It was not about the other person.
Yeah.
It was not about the opponent. It was just like, hey, this particular setup of events, I can make this happen.
Yep.
So that was amazing.
Yeah,
that was
a great story.
That was the coolest thing I ever. I got to see that in person, because like. He got up, and we're just like, what is he do? Oh, my God. It's just like the slow dawning realization of what was happening is great.
Yep. All right, one more question. We'll take it from DanBoy90. Now that we are halfway through the year, do you think you have played the game of the year yet, or is it still to come?
I hope it's still to come.
Me too.
Even my favorite stuff has not been really on the level of I usually think of Game of the Year stuff.
I think you can look at my fantasy team and see that clear as day. Definitely this year, the games that have come out this year have been just overall a little bit disappointing. Mm-hmm. To me, there is no clear-cut Game of the Year candidate right now.
Not right now, no.
I mean, Resident Evil 2 is one of the best games I've played this year, and there's no way in hell I'm giving Game of the Year to a remake, so something better come along.
My favorite so far, I think, has been A Plague Tale.
Yeah.
And God help me if that's the best game I play this year, because I like that game a lot, but it is not in the echelon that I usually think of as my Game of the Year.
That's kind of where we're at. We're seeing the winding down of the generation.
I got a lot of hopes pinned on Pokemon and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
There's still some good stuff to come.
Yeah, I mean, the year's not done by any stretch of the imagination.
Yep. All right, before we go, it's time to hear a word from our sponsor.
Feeling the urge to get away from it all? Permanently or for months at a time? Immerse yourself in the best Montana has to offer on 320 acres of remote, heavily forested property. Gaze at your own private lake from the deck of the log cabin. Truly off the grid, soak in a custom wood fire-heated hot tub surrounded by wilderness and wildlife. Visit www.lostlakemontana.com for more detailed information and images. You can also contact Doug DeShazer today at deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643. That's deshazermt@gmail.com or 406-291-1643.
We got news coming in.
Once again, hit up DeShazer Ryan Realty. If you're looking for property anywhere in the U.S., not just in Montana, they can hook you up no matter where you're looking to buy. Before we go today, first of all, thanks to everybody who was on the stream today. I think the 1 o'clock thing seems to be working. Like, I know the chat seems to be rocking the whole show. That's great. I know people in Europe were able to participate and watch the show live. That's awesome. Do not forget, today's high score, every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We did the time intentionally so folks in Europe can get involved. We had a great first episode. I guess it was a reboot.
Yeah.
We had a great first episode. We want more and new people to come in for the second episode. I'm hoping that you guys can. New episode of Pactor Factor going up tomorrow. You're going to get a double dip probably tomorrow. You're going to get Pactor Factor and this early in the morning, although Pactor Factor will probably be later at night. Again, really good questions this round. I was kind of worried because there's not much going on, but you guys did a great job asking questions, so look for that. Anything you want to update folks on, Matt?
Not so far. Just, be real careful if you want that Metal Wolf Chaos action.
Yeah, stay away. Anyway, thanks for watching as always. Everybody have a great day. GameFace is up and out.